There is wisdom rising to the surface today that is older than time itself. This is Babylon, and you're about to listen to Paradigm Shift Radio episode 107, Decoded Wisdom of the Qabalah, with our good friend Calum Turnbull. The Qabalah is an ancient collection of knowledge of what reality is and our relationship to it, passed on often orally in secret from generation to generation. Now the information is being reintegrated into our modern way of life as we evolve beyond the fulfillments of material desires and seek a deeper connection and understanding about reality. In this episode, we cover a wide variety of topics under the umbrella of the Qabalah, related to astrology, numerology, physics, misconceptions, and more. Our friend Noah also joined us in the episode to share some of his insights too. As a means to help make this information more available, this episode went well beyond the regular time frame as we extended the recording to 3 hours, and in the last hour, Calum shared about his vivid memories from the other side of his death experience, following a motorcycle accident in which he was dead for 7 minutes and yet experienced consciously being in the astral for 7 some odd hours. As the conversations like these take place, it helps us continue to remember that there is more to this reality than we commonly are presented with. As we pull back the veil, the objective is to integrate these higher understandings into our day-to-day lives as we continue to help transform ourselves into the persons who we came here to be, and to evolve on our own journey and assist others along the way. We are the spiritual fractals who volunteered to be in this human experience, so thank you for choosing to listen, choosing to grow, and choosing to change the world by changing yourself. Calum will be joining us again in due time, so tune in for future episodes and enjoy the flow. One love. Trace it back to the roots and get ready to expand your consciousness once again. This is Babylon. You're tuned in for another exciting, consciousness-expanding, community, interactive, inspirational, entertaining, and exciting episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. Thank you so much, everybody, once again for joining us here for this live episode. And, of course, shout out to all of you in the future who are listening to the recording of this show. Time is an illusion. We're all in this place together. And regardless of where and when, the important thing is that we are here. We are right now. And we are engaging. We are engaging with the process of expanding our consciousness. And what does this mean? This means presenting ourselves with new information, being open to the process of listening, being open to the process of hearing about some of the knowledge that has been passed on from generations to generations, and now, only recently, in this most exciting time that we live in, is coming to the surface. The esoteric is rising because now is such a pivotal time to be alive, and we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about decoding the wisdom of the Qabalah tonight, and we got our good buddy Calum Turnbull who's going to be joining us in the show in the next couple moments. And before we do that, of course, I just want to send out an invitation for everybody listening to this to invite their friends. A reminder that the reason why we do Paradigm Shift Radio, the reason why I am dedicated to putting my energy into this is because I know that this show is a very valuable tool that all of us can use as a medium for us to be able to share with other people. So if you're listening to the show and you got some friends who you want to be able to help get them thinking outside the box and encourage them to be able to just get excited about the fact that we are alive, that we are spiritual beings on this human adventure, and we are figuring things out as we are going along, not alone, but along with this journey that we are on. So please invite your friends to this show. Share the show in some of the groups that you might be on through Facebook. If you operate some pages, please share it through there. If you are a Paradigm Shift community admin, please share the show through your respected community pages. And of course, long story short, those of you who may not be familiar with what Paradigm Shift is, you can check out ParadigmShiftCentral.com to find lots of conscious media produced by the community members here. And this is a global interactive project where we are creating digital and physical space to foster the evolution of consciousness. So there are Paradigm Shift communities all across the globe. Check out the last episode that we did all about how to build a Paradigm Shift community if you're interested in that. That's the process of being able to invoke the ideas of synchronicity to help connect with others where you are, to be able to help bring community together, to be able to help build the tribe. So this is an aspect of that. This is the digital tribe that we have here. And a special shout out to the beautiful admins of Paradigm Shift Vacaville, to Ariana and to Kristen. Kristen was on the end of the episode last week, and they have been engaging in the free hugs and building their community, and it's really taking off. And they posted up a video that is up through the discussion group, and it's really amazing. They were just talking about how they were doing free hugs out at the farmers market, and then what their technique was is they would do free hugs, and then they would have their open-minded discussion and meditation meeting that morning in the park, and they were able to invite people out to it. So their tactics are working, and they are an inspiration to myself, and they are great role models for other Paradigm Shift community members as to the fact that anybody can take action. They are changing lives. We are changing lives together. So it's a very, very exciting time to be alive, to be able to help bring people together, because ultimately information is such an important thing. How do you expect people to change if they don't know the knowledge, if they don't know the alternatives, if they don't have a roadmap to understanding this reality? So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about the Qabalah. So what is the Qabalah? That is part of the discussion. But long story short, the Qabalah is almost like this ancient instruction manual that was written eons and eons ago for understanding the universe, and our place within it. So tonight on the show, we have our good friend Calum Turnbull, who is going to be joining us, and he himself is a title of master, and he's been studying the Qabalah, and a lot of it is stuff that is going to be new for me in a lot of ways. So I'll share a little bit of my own familiarity with the Qabalah, and for this episode tonight, I am really going to be working as a moderator between the people in the live chat and the discussion that myself and Calum will be having here on the air. So if you have particular questions, please send a private message to me through Paradigm Shift Radio in the live chat. If you're not in the live chat, then please feel free to just log into that through Blog Talk. Scroll down, log in with your Facebook, super easy, and get engaged with that. So if you guys have questions throughout the show, please message me through the private message to make sure that I get them, and then I'll relay those into the conversation. So without further ado, I think it's about time that we bring Calum on, and then we'll probably have some surprise guests a little bit later into the episode, and we'll see where things go. And if there's room at the end of the show, we'll make the opportunity to have some other people to call in to share their perspectives on what the Qabalah is and what the Qabalah is not also. So yeah, all right. So we are ready to kick things off here. And with that said, Calum Turnbull, if you're ready, we're going to bring you on to Paradigm Shift Radio. So Calum, hello?
Hi.
Hi. All right. There you go, man. All right. Welcome to Paradigm Shift Radio, good sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate not only that this forum exists for me to stretch out my life purpose a little bit, but that you are doing such good work in making this happen. And I really personally want to thank you for helping everyone else, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, man. And again, that's why I do this show, because I know it's the simple idea that we all have pieces of the puzzle. So Calum, he's been dedicating a lot of his energy to deciphering some of the information into a practical way that we can continue to share it. I like the idea that Einstein said is that a real genius is someone who can take something complicated and explain it simply. So I know that's a little bit about what we're going to be doing tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to break things down and actually be able to bring it into a practical sense that we can apply to our everyday actions and the love that we're sharing with the world around us. So with that said, we'll get right into this. So the Qabalah, first of all, there's obviously sort of multiple ways to spell it, and the way that we're talking about is you specified that you want to spell it Qabalah, Qabalah. Yeah. So specifically with the Q, but a lot of people will say, so what is the Qabalah? Is the Qabalah, is it a book? Is it a text? There seems to even be some misinformation as to what it actually is. So from the very base level, let's start off with the idea that we're talking to people who have literally never heard anything about it, and our goal is to educate them on it. Please introduce what is the Qabalah, and just a little bit about your fascination with it and what got you into researching it.
Sure. First, let me say that there are 3 different versions of the Qabalah. The least familiar and least used is the Christian Cabala, which is spelled with a C at the beginning. Of course, the letter C is a trick. It's invented for the English language. Our letter C is actually the mirror of the Hebrew letter K, which is where all the hard C sounds come from. There are very few Christian mystics that study the Kabbalah in their form at all, and that mostly has to do with beseeching angels to help you rather than actual metaphysical knowledge. Kabbalah, spelled with a K, which is pronounced Qabalah, the way people have been conditioned to hear it, really refers to what the Jewish people will tell you is the more important section of the Kabbalah. It has to do with the Zohar. The Zohar is an encyclopedic collection of rabbinic texts, basically everything that every respected rabbi ever said to his students throughout the last couple thousand years was passed on through oral traditions, compiled in a book. This is what they're teaching from at the Cabala Center, and it's really a very, very deep, heavy, somber, in some cases, bordering on. Well, it's from a very patriarchal point of view. I'll just leave it at that. The Zohar has much advice for everything that has to do with human interaction, how we fight with each other, how we get along with each other. But in my limited experience of studying it, it doesn't really have a lot of specific metaphysical information, which is what I find the most useful. Mm-hmm. So my studies into Cabala, and we pronounce it that way, has to do with what would normally be called the mathematical or scientific Kabbalah by the people that aren't really discussing it. And they don't want to discuss it because, frankly, there are no institutions, schools, or authority figures that really want you to know much of anything. They just want you to do what you're told. And that's why the study of the Kabbalah has been discouraged and made very, very hard, unnecessarily hard, in my opinion, by the inclusion of purposeful errors, the mistakes of translators, and just the outright lies of people that claim to be teachers. The word itself in the Ivrit language, which is the Hebrew people, who most of them follow the Jewish religion, their language is called Ivrit. And it's actually very interesting that it sounds almost like the name of a genie, because the enemies of those people, their brothers from thousands of years ago, would like to tell you that the whole Kabbalah thing is an evil system of worshiping the jinn, the genies, invisible beings that wreak havoc in the world. Whereas the people who study Kabbalah will tell you, no, we work with the angels, who are the great directors of the universe and who build the kingdom of God so that we may all live in it. The actual word itself is simply spelled Qblh. There are no vowels in this language, which I prefer to call proto-phonetic. It's the first language where every letter has a numerical value. The first two letters, Aleph and Beth, are worth 1 and 2, and that's where English gets the word alphabet from. So if there's any wonder in your mind, where did our culture, religion come from, there's a simple answer.
Okay, that's from my base understanding of Kabbalah. One of the things that I really picked up on was the idea that it's very based around mathematical equations. Like there's numbers involved with all the letters, and they all add up, and they sort of like give out like this map of the universe, and the idea is that these numbers correspond with what we would now interpret as like sacred geometry or modern science. So I mean, I think in terms of understanding what the Kabbalah is, like, I mean, it's almost like, I mean, it was presented, like, it goes hand in hand with this idea that modern day science is sort of revealing ancient knowledge of, like, quantum reality in that sense. But yeah, like, maybe just as we continue along with this conversation, so the Kabbalah, like, it does exist within like written form, like the information of the knowledge of the Qabalah, it exists within written form, but it's not like a single book or anything like that. Like, is it more of just like sort of like an encompassing bubble for knowledge that is supposed to help us like be better people within this reality? Is that kind of an accurate way to say it? I mean, I'm just trying to map this out myself.
Well, you could certainly classify the Zohar and Kabbalistic studies as they occur in temples around the world that way, absolutely, trying to become a better person. That's also what astrology and philosophy and religion were supposed to be about. The mathematics of it is not really what we think of as math. The quantum physicists of today, who, as you noted, are simply repackaging these ancient mystical truths. They have invented their own set of words to describe things that were described with another set of words thousands of years ago. The people of that time, and we have to remember that when Cabala first came out, the method of understanding impossible things, people that have had spiritual visions, that have channeled truth, light information, that have communed with these angels and learned things from them, gained information, those people have to repackage that information in the vernacular of their time. Certain cultures have innate prejudices. That's why you're born into the culture that you're in. The pattern that you are needs to manifest in a certain place at a certain time. And the whole of human history is full of, example after example after example of groups of people that got together and do crazy things. Why? Because those things just kind of seeped into the back of their head, and everyone got the same idea at the same time. And that's what Cabala, the word, is describing. The word means to receive, to accept, to allow into your perception.
Okay. Yeah, like that's kind of what I understand about it. Like, it was interesting because I was reading up on some stuff last night, and for those of you who are anime fans, you may actually share this similarity, but my first introduction to the Qabalah and some of the symbolism associated with it, such as the Tree of Life, and those of you, and we'll talk about this. We'll talk about the Tree of Life and how there may actually be some misinterpretation of it. And just run a Google search on Tree of Life. Those of you, you've probably seen it, like in if you've been traveling across the internet for the last few years. But it was that symbol of the Tree of Life actually first appeared to me within an anime series called Neon Genesis Evangelion back in the day, and I don't want to even get too far into that because that whole movie is just like a mind trip in itself. But one of the things while I was doing my research that came to the surface that really clicked for me was this idea that, yes, the Qabalah was like not necessarily a written thing. It was also like an oral thing. It was just like an idea of just like an ancient knowledge that is older than time itself, sort of thing. But the idea is that for a very long time, up until this very recent century, the Qabalah has been quite hidden. It has been quite esoteric, and that is in many ways like also been intentional, because people who sort of had access to this knowledge would suddenly be gaining access to knowledge of understanding about astrology, about astronomy, about when to do certain actions to be able to anticipate the best outcome, things like practical magic, things like how thoughts create reality, things like understanding lucid dreaming and things like that. So my point is that what has happened right now within this reality that we live in is that the reason why the Qabalah is coming back to the surface is because man has reached the state in his desires where he knows that there's something more. So what's happened within the last recent years is that all this materialistic stuff has been coming up into culture, and within this dream within a dream, man has been experiencing all these different fascinations. He's been driving the fastest cars, he's been surfing, he's been skydiving, he's been eating all this food, he's been watching movies, he's been having sex with everyone, and yet at the end of the day he still feels this void within his heart. And then he asks, there's got to be something more, and that's when man turns to spirituality. And that's actually what's happening now. That's why like so many of us have just intuitively found ourselves drawn towards spirituality. And I sort of use spirituality as an umbrella phrase to refer to the idea that there's more to this reality than meets the eye, that things aren't as cut and dry as it appears to be, that there is the spiritual nature of things, which is the sight beyond sight, which is often like unseen yet hidden in plain sight. So that is what I think is very interesting about this Qabalah thing, is the fact that it has come to the surface now within the time period that man is ready to receive it. And like you said, that is exactly what Qabalah is about. It's about receiving. So yeah, like from that sense, I think if you're a person listening to this show, then yeah, like you are sort of like at the forefront of consciousness, as the consciousness as a whole is expanding its way towards like that quest of finding something more, to fill that void within our heart. And that void within our heart, I think, almost goes back to this like ancient remembrance of our connection to all things, and realizing that love is all there is, and all this other stuff that I've talked about plenty of times on the show. But just passing it back to Calum, what do you think about that idea that like that is what has happened within this reality, that we've fulfilled our desires, there's still a void in our heart, we're seeking something more, and what we're ending up to seek is spirituality, and Qabalah is helping us map out our spiritual quest that we can pursue ourselves towards?
Generally, I would tend to agree. Cabala has been revealed in recent years, and if we look back, I've been on this for 10 or 12 years now. In the preceding century, Cabala alternated between sort of fringy magic wackiness and a deeply held religious tradition. In the century before that, it was actually in vogue amongst the most powerful and influential people of the world to have their own private Kabbalists and magicians, and these people held court positions for the kings of Europe. Some of the most famous people have actually been the pet magicians of the Queen of England, as just an example. Now, they will tell you, the rabbinic teachers of Kabbalah, who are limited in what they are allowed to tell you by the rules of the orders that they have been taught in and by, they will tell you that mankind has grown to the point where some precious few, the best of the best, that one sperm that fertilizes the egg, that person is capable of hearing the truth and receiving God's light. And they mean God the Father, with the whole paternal overtone that goes with it. Personally, I tend to think that all teachers who venerate traditions and existing systems are enslaved by those systems. But there's no doubt that once you make a vow that comes with learning certain things, you have to keep that vow. I did it myself. I did it the very, very hard way, the way they tell you not to do it. And I recommend that no one else try and do it that way, because they were right. It was a long and painful trip through every kind of hell you can imagine, where everything you think you are and think you have and think you know is stripped away from you until you, the person, becomes nothing. And the less you imagine yourself to be, the more you can be filled with this light, which is true knowledge, information, otherwise known as the actual rules by which this reality is created and all things in it must function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where it gets interesting, because then you start to learn about like the relationship between ourselves and reality, and and like Gnosis and know thyself. And it was interesting because like even just what you're saying there, I was mentioning earlier that the Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's an anime. I encourage people to look it up. It's amazing in itself. But that's exactly what happens in that series if you interpret it from the idea that whole series takes place within the framework of the Qabalah, of the teachings of the Qabalah. And like there's this whole part in the series where like it's all introspective, and that's what happened to the character. He's sort of like everything sheds away so that he can see what he is, so that he can learn who he is and who he is not, sort of thing. And it's like confrontation of the ego and dissolving the self and all this awesome stuff. So we'll do another episode about Evangelion, perhaps. But yeah, just I know there's actually a friend of ours, Noah, and he's been on the show in the past, and he himself is Jewish and familiar with the teachings of the Kabbalah in his own way, and I know he's going to come on in the next little bit. But before we do that, can you just sort of give us like an overview of like what are some of like the point form notes that Kabbalah can teach us about? So I mentioned already, it can teach us about like astrology, it can teach us about like sacred geometry. Like what else can it sort of teach us, topic-wise?
Well, a lot of people will look at this from the same perspective that the Hindu yogi looks at things. I'm in my body, life is terrible, I can't get what I want, let's do yoga and obsess about our belly button and forget about all the problems and suffering of life because it's not my business. I really think that's a pretty terrible attitude, but I understand where it comes from. It comes from everything in this world, what they call the Maya, the giant web of lies that create the appearance of reality around us, and the false tree, as it is taught, and every version of authority that every society pushes on the people unfortunate enough to be born in it. And authority is quite the opposite of responsibility, and it's based on a completely different sort of power. The power of the fire to want things, the power of the earth to have things, the power of the air to tell others, and then, of course, the power of the water to believe, to know. And these four different elements, these magical elements, otherwise known as the unseen worlds in the Cabala, are absolutely identical to the four forces of quantum physics. If you look at the Tree of Life and the actual corrected symmetrical version that I've provided, you can see on the fire tree the numbers 1 through 10 are overlaid on the nexus points, the Severa. On the earth tree, we've got the day of the week. On the air tree, we've got the astrological symbols, and on the water tree, we've got the symbols for the Sephira themselves. And in the mathematics of Kabbalah, the 10 Sephira are identical to the yogi idea of the 7 chakras, or the Tibetan concept of the 5 core lungs, Khorlung. They all mean the same thing, sort of a spinning, whirling wheel, flower of light, nexus of energy, whatever you want to say. And the idea that everything in reality is created by a superior set of rules that we cannot see or comprehend because they make us. And these rules have to do with, or perhaps I should say, are expressed in the form of numbers and the interaction of numbers and the resulting and corresponding colors and sounds and vibrations that the mixing, sometimes antagonistic and sometimes complementary, of these numbers creates. The numbers, of course, are not symbols invented by mankind to count sheep. That's just childish and absurd and very humanocentric. A number, the number 1, for instance, is a concept so infinitely great that it leads to the creation of everything that we can see and imagine. The number 1 is not one cow or one raised finger. The number 1 represents the absolute unity of everything without division.
Mm-hmm.
The number... Sorry,
go ahead. No, just confirming. Go ahead, keep going. This is interesting.
Okay, so 1, unity, seems pretty obvious. Well, what's the number 2? The 2 represents division because it is not unity. The 2 is sort of like the executive officer or the captain who tells the men what to do according to the orders of the colonel, but you never see the colonel, or you can say the general, whatever, it doesn't matter.
AKA God.
Well, no, that's God is
okay, we'll get to God later.
Yeah.
Sure.
But actually, you kind of did hit on it. 1, the unity, everything. That's what I call the big idea.
Yeah.
Everything comes from that. But it is not male. It is not female. It has no face. It has no body. And it kind of doesn't really care about you. It's not against you. It's for everyone. But the concept, if you just stop and think for a moment, the concept of absolute unity without judgment or discrimination, of not putting any higher weight on the right hand or the left hand, on white people or black people or girls or boys. If nothing is any different to you, which is the definition of the unity, then you really don't have an opinion. You don't care. The big idea made everything. It contains everything good, everything bad, everything that can ever possibly be in concept form. And those concepts contain millions of ideas of increasingly finer discrimination, smaller pieces of the same idea. And eventually these billions and billions of ideas cause physical things to happen. Ideas have people so that the ideas can be manifest in the world. Mm-hmm. And the way that these ideas operate is through numbers. You could say, well, what comes after the unity? Duality is what comes after unity. The numbers 2, the opposition, and what is 2 opposite? It can't be opposite 1 because 1 has no opposite. 1 is the unity. So what happens is unity creates, as the first step of creating everything, it creates the idea of duality. And that's the division between the number 2 and the number 3. The number 2 being God the Father, you do what I say, and the number 3 being the great goddess, do what you like. And that's the real Trinity right there. God, the infinite, God the Father, and Goddess the Mother. And if you look at some so-called primitive religions around the world, you'll find that they have the exact same idea. Mm-hmm. Now, you could also say, the number 2 is in charge, and that's true. And it did come before the number 3, and that's true. And it is the sort of overlord and patriarchal figure of all authority, and maybe when people were young and bad, they needed to be told what to do. But we don't need that anymore. And there's just as much value in worshiping the goddess as there is the god. But I tell you plainly, until you can get past both of them, you will never approach the unity. And the unity is the place from which, it is the perspective from which all things become equal. And that is what we must all strive for. If I accomplished anything, I saw that.
For sure, man. Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting when you're just breaking down what each of these numbers mean, what they represent, what they sort of reflect, what they are a metaphor for within this bigger picture of all things. So whether if you're using the term numerology, that would be accurate. But yeah, numerology in multiple layers, and then I'm presuming here that like you could really delve into the numerology of yourself. And that was actually something, just long story short, I went to a pagan festival that was in London, Ontario, just on the weekend, and there was a small numerology class, and she was just emphasizing, like the idea of breaking down the numerology within the numbers of your name. And like you would have the letters throughout the alphabet 1 to 9 repeating, so it goes like ABC 1 2 3 up to 9, then back to 1, and then you do that, you get your numbers, then you break it down to a single digit, so like 3 plus 4 would equal 11. But then technically, some people would say you don't break down 11, but if you were, it'd become 2, and then you add it up. So again, that's just like a quick tutorial on numerology. But people say that you get your numbers, and then these numbers sort of reflect a different, what I can refer to best as like a different, like, not just archetype, but like a different version of human that has like a different nature. And then the interesting thing is that it sort of layers upon itself with concepts of whether you're male or female, and also like your zodiac, your astrology. So there's like your numerology sign, that's a part of who your identity is. There's your astrology, like actual like what you are. People who are certain astrology signs, we can say as we get to know them, that be like, yes, like that person is very much the nature of a Virgo, or very much the nature of a Cancer. That's something I can say about myself. And then through there, again, you have like the male and female on top of that. So out of that, it's interesting because it creates, like even just those few things plus all sorts of other variables that are in our life create us into who we are. So we're not separate from like the numerology. The numerology in itself like represents the archetypal like forms that ripple throughout reality. And again, like they're referring to so many things on multiple levels, and we are a reflection of them in a lot of ways. So if you're interested, definitely learn about your own numerology, and then you'll learn about yourself. You'll learn about your own nature. You'll be able to see patterns to be like, wow, sometimes I do that. Why do I do that? What can I learn from my process of observing how I do that? Now, I know there's obviously the rest of the numbers, and we can work our way through that. And I do want to bring Noah on, and I'll pass it back to you just to get in any other point regarding. But before, just wanted to let everyone know that I put up a page actually because Calum was talking about the images that he made. The symmetrical versions of the Tree of Life is one way to interpret it. And if you go to paradigmshiftcentral.com/Qabalah with a Q, so Qabalah, then you'll find the images I actually put up there, including the link to his Facebook page, to make it super easy so you guys can just take your time and kind of look at those. And it's super interesting because you've drawn those, and again, like what they are, it's sort of I guess it's a hex, it's a 1 2 3, so so how it's got a shape around it, and then all the points sort of connecting in on itself, and in itself you're like, hey, that's sort of like, it looks like a Merkaba, it looks like a bunch of things. And it's very interesting for me because I've drawn that exact same design over top of the Paradigm Shift sigil, and I'll actually post an image of that later. I'll Photoshop it and stuff. But the Paradigm Shift sigil, coinciding incidentally, it lays over perfectly.
That's no coincidence.
with the symbol that like you've created here, that you've interpreted, because you pulled it out. Like we were talking earlier about what are ideas. Ideas don't even belong to us. We just we get the opportunity to reach out and grab them when we have the chance. So you came across like that same idea that I myself have come across, which is why part of the reason why I'm just like, awesome, I want to be able to like co-create with you on the show, because both of us are, again, picking up on something that's outside of ourselves. And I guarantee you other people listening to the show can look at that symbol and be like, yeah, like I've drawn something like that too, or I've thought about that idea in a different way. But yeah, I'm really interested in that. And obviously you can sort of see like the whole idea of as above, so below within it, which is a huge Hermetic principle philosophy that teaches us a lot about just like the simple reflection that like consciousness is a mirror to us, just being able to see yourself in your surroundings, and also the idea that like things that happen on the physical ripple out up into the spiritual, and things that are in the spiritual ripple into the physical. It goes both ways. So it's like the constant reflection. There's like, when you think about, well, what's above? What's above? Above is what we're doing when we're dreaming each night. So again, that's where you get into the whole idea of like lucid dreaming practice as part of the reason why the Kabbalah would be something of interest, because it helps you gain an understanding of dimensions beyond just this physical one, which is something we will get into. I know Calum wants to talk about that. Now we can bring on Noah in the next minute, but I'll just pass it over to Calum. Calum, is there anything else just that you want to put out there or reiterate by any means? Please do so.
Okay. Well, as far as numbers, and the tree, the quote tree of life, which this glyph is commonly referred to. I did not really discover anything. I didn't invent anything. I made some pictures on my computer. I drew some pencil sketches, and it's all very nice. But I didn't make that up, and I didn't invent that. I've made some really cool things from this knowledge, which kind of even blew my own mind. What actual physical objects created on these principles can really do. You can build a device which and apparently inert object made of crystals and copper wire and stuff that you can get at Home Depot or an art supply store, and then when you take a Kirlian photograph of it, it's doing something. It's alive. It's actually emitting energy. And I've become convinced over the last few years that the whole big magnetic bottle fusion power free energy breakthrough that mankind is starving to death while we wait for is right here in the Qabalah. And this tree of life design, as it's commonly called, which is identical to the Yggdrasil of the Vikings, the tree of the knowledge of life, the original rune by which all the Futhark runes are drawn, the concept, even the shape of the days of the week and the order in which they come, and the six-pointed star, or Merkaba, that you mentioned, the pentagram, the Star Trek communicator, every form of cross, every single geometric sigil ever created by anyone, anywhere, ever, comes directly from this pattern. This is not simply a design. This is what it actually is. When you get out of your body, whether you journey out through your third eye, or you die, or you use an entheogen that lets your awareness ascend to a higher level of reality, when you climb way, way, way up the ladder of frequencies, 50 levels above the so-called astral plane where people project to, where everything is just fantastical and made up and really only means something to your subconscious. When you climb way up and beyond these concepts and these prejudices, when you get past the whole division of God versus the goddess and you just get outside of the system and look at it, that's what you see. Because that's what it really is. It's a geometric matrix, which is the interaction of frequencies of energy that can be identified and quantified and measured in their echoes here in this world. And the interaction of those frequencies creates apparently spherical bubble realities, such as the universe we live in and the planet that we live on.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. The bubble thing, that's totally something that, like, again, no one had to tell me that. At one point, I'm pretty sure everything's just a bunch of bubbles against bubbles in the giant bubble field. Like, I think that's how it works. Like, I think it makes sense. So, I mean, whether you're talking, people are sort of connecting these dots with, like, the toroidal energy field that's around our body. Like, that is it. And then, again, like, people would say there's, like, the star tetrahedron around your body. Like, that's it, too. That's the same thing. It's just sort of different phrases for the same thing. But I like that. I like the idea that we exist within a bubble matrix. So I'm gonna bring in, Calum, is there anything else, or are we ready to bring on Noah, do you think?
No, go ahead, bring Noah on.
All right. So we'll bring Noah on in the next second. I'm just letting you guys know I'm just finishing up a quick Photoshop file here of the Paradigm Shift sigil over top of Calum's art here, of like the Tree of Life in that version, and I'm going to post it again at paradigmshiftcentral.com/Qabalah with a Q, Qabala, and you'll see that there, and you'll see what I mean. You'll see the synchronicity of it, which I think is super awesome, because like that sigil in itself, I agree. It's mapping out the same thing. It's just my interpretation of it, but I did it sort of like subconsciously, or like hyper consciously or something. But I'll keep working on that, and I'm going to bring Noah on, and we're going to see what he has to share. So Noah, our good buddy Noah, who's been on Paradigm Shift Radio a bunch of times, he was recently in Israel, which I think is amazing, and obviously he's been around a lot of like the Jewish tradition. He's going to talk a little bit about his interpretation of the Qabalah and say hello to the people. So Noah, if you're ready, we've got you on air. Hello, Noah.
Can you hear me?
Hey, man. Good to hear you. Welcome back.
Good to hear you too.
Welcome back.
Nice.
You're in Toronto now, right?
I'm actually in Thornbury, Ontario, which is near Collingwood.
You're camping or whatever you said. Yeah. Or
my cottage here.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome,
exactly.
Welcome back. Go ahead.
Yeah, very interesting discussion. I guess from all my studies and continual studies, I've been delving into for the last 2 to 3 years, really deep into my heart, because of the idea that the ancestry of our are in our DNA essentially, and so I've just been drawn to the Jewish wisdom in a very deep way. Very hard to really put my grasps on it, even though it transcends all religion for sure. But I just want to first off start off by saying that really the Kabbalah, the Zohar, is one aspect of the mystical wisdom that's been transmitted by the Ari. That means the lion. He lived in the mystical city of Tzfat in Israel, and basically decoded a ton of spiritual wisdom. That basically the idea is that the further away, so the closer you are to basically Moses' original revelation, the deeper and more cryptid the wisdom is. And that essentially, when the Ari revealed the tree of what his aspects of understanding of the tree of life were, that was even so decrypted and coded that throughout the generations, even in the last 100 years, namely the guy who the Kabbalah Center is basically founded after, which is Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, he basically did a commentary on the Zohar and on the tree of life. And just to mention that the Zohar is not written, Zohar actually originated, the oral wisdom of it originated in the 2nd century and was rewritten in the 13th century by a guy named Moses de Leon. And basically what I'm trying to get at here is that the wisdom of Kabbalah stems from that work, but essentially it is the entire oral wisdom of Judaism that's ever existed. So if you ever look in King Solomon when he says, I know the language of the birds, I know the sounds of the animals, or I know the sounds of God and the whistling of the trees, all of that understanding, all of that shamanistic understanding is also existent within the Kabbalah. Anything that was received in some fragment from the beginning of the original revelation on Mount Sinai, from God, so to speak, to the Jewish people, has been transmitted in different segments of different time periods in history. So there's most of it is really about the refinement of character and how that relates to these higher states of consciousness. So in my experience, what's so interesting is that the further I've gotten interested in the mystical elements of all these things, the further I've become interested in the simplicity of the simple texts. That really, what it helped me do was it helped me look back at the most simple teachings of the prophets and the most simple teachings in all of the mainstream texts in Judaism and be like, wow, this is the soul that is beyond the literal word. So it basically just infuses a high level of soul reality and intention, which we call kavana in Hebrew, to my understanding of Judaism. A lot of it has to do with the gematria, which is the numerology in Judaism, which is taking 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and through that understanding secrets that relate to our existence, which helped me kind of, in this conversation, understand the unity. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it seemed that your understanding of the unity was a little bit different than, I guess, the typical Jewish or Kabbalistic understanding, that essentially, although this unity is neither male nor female, it is literally just the highest level of love and compassion, care, and mercy that possibly exists, that we could ever possibly imagine. And within the Kabbalistic gematria, that secret is inherent. The word for love in Hebrew is ahava. So that mathematical sequence contains 4 letters, which equal 13. And that is love. And the word for one, which is the absolute unity, is echad. And echad also equals 13. And the teachings in Kabbalah talk a lot about how certain, if mathematical numbers are the same, they're resonating in frequency. So one in love, essentially the greatest oneness is actually the greatest love. And when you add together the one and the love, which is ahava, echad in Hebrew, it adds up to the unspoken name of God. The was, the is, and the will be. The absolute, undifferentiated, neither male nor female reality. It adds up to 26, which together is one love. And if you actually just look at the Aleph itself, the actual shape of the Aleph has 2 yuds, and the yud, both yuds are 10 in mathematical, which adds up to 20, and it has a vav, which adds up to 6, which is 26, which is another way that the oneness is revealed in that just that one letter of the whole Hebrew alphabet contains everything. It basically has if you really look carefully, the vav, which is the aspect of the aleph that connects kind of diagonally, is actually connected to 2 lines that are going, one is going down and one is going up to the heavens. And the whole idea is that there is the bridge between heaven and earth is this idea of God and this idea of oneness, and that it's truly revealed as the greatest love that ever existed. It's called in Kabbalah's Kabbalistic terms the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. And this love, this unity, is not so much neutral as it is just the greatest bliss, the greatest purity, the greatest love that exists. And how this relates to what you were talking about with the male dominance description in the Zohar, there's a lot in the Zohar that talks about the unification of the Shekhinah, which is the divine presence, with the God above. And the whole idea of the Shekhinah is the Mother Earth, it's Mother Nature, and Mother Nature is a feminine energy. And so actually what's so interesting is that the Zohar really, really creates a renaissance for the feminine aspect of godliness, for the idea that the rectification, or what a Jews would refer to as messianic times, is the rectification of God above with God below. And so it's less about this male dominance as in the balance. And really, if you look at the Bible itself, there's a lot of male dominance. And that's just due to also a superficial understanding of the text. But really, the Zohar has helped return some of that aspect of the importance of the female aspect of godliness, so to speak. There's so much to discuss, but I just wanted to send that out there because that was just honestly at the tip of my tongue when you were talking.
Cool, man. No, I appreciate it, man. Like, I think it's all information, so I mean, what we can do is just piece it together. Now, I think Calum has something to say, just in response or in addition to. No, are you cool to stick around for a little bit, or do you got to go soon?
Yeah.
Or okay,
yeah,
cool. All right, okay, yeah, no, but just passing the talking stick over to Calum, please. Anything that you just want to continue along with?
Well, I'm familiar with the Ari and a little more a fan of the Gra, personally, probably because the only picture I've ever seen in any book, whether it was a Western book written in English, a very old book written in archaic English, or the few English translated Kabbalistic teachings that my Israeli girlfriend shared with me. The only time I ever saw the tree drawn right was the picture that was drawn by the Gra. So that's about all I can say about that. As far as whether or not God is love, the giant question is, what do you mean when you say God? When you use that word, everybody interprets it as God, the father of patriarchy, and Judaism is the father of patriarchal religions. Everyone loves the idea of the sacred feminine, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's quite possible that now you can be a lady rabbi and you can be accepted as a businesswoman or a political leader as a female or a minority, thank you. But that still doesn't change the subject, or no, that's not the right word. That doesn't change the way things have always been for the longest time. And I'm certainly not trying to pick an argument with anyone out of history that can't defend themselves, but if you consider that when you say God, people hear God the Father, then you are not talking about the unity. You are talking about the executive officer. You are talking about the being that invented war and violence and giving orders. That's just its job. You might as well say Yang. Or if you're a pagan, you say the Lord, as in the Lord and the Lady. And the Lady is mercy and wisdom, and the Lord is authority and intelligence. And even in any study of Cabala, they will identify the numbers 2 and 3 as just that, wisdom and intelligence.
Okay.
So the unity, if you want to say it's love, all is love, everything is love, I'm not going to argue one bit, because my definition of love is giving of yourself, spending your energy, allocating your resources. In the case of the creation of the universe, there was one thing which completely gave itself, that everything else might exist. My point is merely that that one thing, that big idea, contains within itself every good and evil idea that has ever been. Everything masculine and everything feminine, all the numbers, the magical elements, aka quantum forces, they are all products of that ultimate unity. And therefore, the ultimate unity is, at best, neutral.
So, again, thank you so much for reminding me that, because I guess, and this is actually something that I really try to emphasize much more, is what does that blanketed word really mean? And you really almost were alluding to it, interestingly enough. For me, especially in my studies in the Ashlagian Qabalah, that has not been separated from the authenticness of the oral tradition, is that essentially we have absolute unity at the beginning of creation. And from within this absolute unity, the best way that man can perceive it to be, you have the element of unconditional giving, which is love, as you alluded to. And this unconditional giving that cannot take anything in return is basically the highest level that man can strive for in his life, which is an affinity of form with the Creator. And Rav Ashlag teaches that essentially God, as you would put it, is basically the infinite creative energy force of the universe. Now, it can contain evil, so to speak, which is literally just a difference of form. So essentially, the absolute giving, the absolute goodness, in Kabbalistic terms, is when man is one with God. And essentially all that means is that when man has transformed his will to receive into a will of being a giver. And what's so interesting is that in the process of creation, man actually received from the absolute givingness, the absolute giver, an element that is not within, so to speak, the absolute perfection of the Creator. Within man, there is an element of receptivity. I have a body. I have to receive life. I have to receive food and nutrients and energy. And there's an element within ourselves that is actually a difference of form. Even though it's all God, it's a difference of form with the infinite love and the infinite giving. and that basically our rectification of our souls involve our return to an affinity of form with the Creator, which is essentially when we transform our wills to receive, our inherent selfish nature, which is actually separate, so to speak, from God, into the will to receive life. We want to receive life only for the purpose of giving. And that is something that, for me in my studies so far, that of understanding the prophets, who in many ways achieved the most delightful union with the Creator, so to speak, reaching those levels of both prophetic communication and the love and the goodness from God, so to speak, really came from that level of givingness, that level of selflessness, which basically helps them transcend the elements of themselves that are different than other souls. So I guess when I understand what God is, essentially it is the infinite creative energetic force of love that is constantly and continually recreating. Now the thing is that with our element of free will, we can use it in a way that it's never that we're separate. It's never that we're truly separate from this highest love. It's just that we, in our experience here as perceptions in duality, can actually pretend and start to believe that we are separate. And that's when we start to identify ourselves as the receiving aspect, which is the aspect of separateness. So I don't really look at it as just the male patriarchal aspect of God. God is, so to speak, the is, was, and will creative force of the universe. That what is so beautiful about it when we realize is that for some reason I live in this planet, and in the strangest ways, love actually sustains, and hatred or separation can lead to the destruction of the planet. And I don't really, it's something that we take for granted. Like, why doesn't hate destroy, like, why doesn't hate sustain? And it's a really interesting thing, because God forbid anyone should be sick or anything, but
hate is the fire.
That is that it's an organism, a cancer, God forbid, is this organism that is separate from the rest of, like, is doing something that goes against, so to speak, the flow of things. And why is it that when people go against the flow, such as hatred, it creates anger, which is, God forbid, can create terrible things such as murder and destruction and the creation of materials that can end up leading to an unsustainable planet. It's unbelievable how much hatred can do and how much love can heal, both on a personal level in the body and on a global level. Like, that is the creative juice that can sustain the planet. And that's what I look at God as.
Yeah, like creative potential expressing itself. Like, I think I agree, man. I'll just say just a couple things, and then we'll pass back to Calum. And I know there's a lot of stuff still to get into, and I really just want to give Calum some more opportunity to just hit upon some specifics. But yeah, like that, you're right. Like, that is like the big kicker, is that I think one of the paradigm shifts is that people sort of realize that, like, God again is just, our interpretation of it is expanding into a more holistic view of realizing that the God is like the everythingness that we are just an extension of. But you're right, like, that is, again, that is, for me, like, I was reflecting on this the other day, like, that is what makes this life so incredibly beautiful, is the idea that, like, we are literally all these, like, we are figuring things out about our body, like, as we sort of go along, where all of us are just sitting around the table from each other and be like, man, like, what are we doing here? What are these bodies? Like, what's going on? Like, chakras, what are those? How does that work? How can we do this? And then we're, like, piecing together all this information, while at the same time we're, like, gaining access to an instruction manual that's actually already inside of ourselves, which, again, is, like, almost like what the Qabalah is sort of, like, teaching-wise is a reflection of. And one thing I was just going to say, because it's just really something that I want to share with people, and it came up in a discussion today with my friend Lane at our table, and we were hanging out, and after we did Tai Chi, coincidentally. But Hughes and I were just talking about that, you know, like, what is the big thing in all this? And I think the big thing comes down to choice. You know, like, when a person is, like, on a path to change the world, I don't think it's proper to sort of say, like, oh, you know, like, they are the chosen one, but rather to interpret the idea of saying they are the chosen one as they are the ones who they themselves have made the choice, and most often times than not, like, that choice is a reflection of, like, the altruistic love that we are to be able to help other people. And again, that's where you said it's a transformation to be, like, both like a receiver and a giver, to be able to, like, perpetuate, like, everything that we are into the future generations to come. Or at least that's just one way I'm trying to explain it, using the limitations of words, and I can explain it more. But I really want to pass it back over to Calum and just sort of get into, I mean, again, there's, like, the physics side of all this. There's, like, a lot to do with understanding the multiple dimensions of reality that things exist on, and how things sort of make it into this one. Even just the tree of life that we were talking about earlier, my simple interpretation of that, based on what my friends have talked to me about, is that in itself is sort of like a map of the dimensions, among other things. And you can really, there's a lot of information on that, but Calum would also say that, like, that may not be the most accurate interpretation of it. So, I mean, you got to just sort of be open to other ideas, I guess. But we'll pass it over to Calum, and yeah, please, we'll just continue along here. And Noah, we'll just, like, sort of let Calum talk in. Do you just want to, I know you're up at the cottage, do you want to stick around, or should we, or, because I just,
yeah,
how you feel?
I'll just hear, I'll probably just listen and whatever.
Yeah, okay, cool. As long as you're listening and stuff. And I'm just going to put you on mute, too, just so there's no buzz from your phone. But just message me if you got something to say, but we'll pass it back over to Calum. But yeah, thanks again, Noah. It's good to hear from you, and I really do appreciate you sharing what you have pieced together from your end of things.
Take care.
Important.
All the best.
All right. One love, man. Cheers.
One love.
All right. So, yeah, please, Calum, just on the topic of what you think people should know about, what they should be more aware of, that is my question to you, is what do you think people should be more aware of in terms of what we're talking about here today?
Well, I really, didn't want to have to get into any flavor of religious discussion, because people take that way too seriously, and I just don't have a lot of respect for it at all, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's necessary that people find their own way. What I'm doing is I'm trying to give you a picture of the end of the road, so that you don't all have to wander through the wilderness like I did to get to that place. And unfortunately, it is necessary, in order for the people that can learn what is needed to know to evolve themselves to a higher order of existence, which is completely possible. You can do it right now today. One of the things that they got to know is that God is not love. That is not correct. That is a mishmash of terms, and it has led to absolute hell on this planet for 1,000 years now. God, G-O-D, is God the Father. That's what it is. Goddess, the Mother, is equal to and opposite God the Father. But what the Kabbalists call the white head, or the greater countenance, or the infinite supremacy, what the yogis call the supreme soul, the oneness that is everything, that point in a dimension we cannot even conceive of, where the ladder of rules, the frequencies of energy that are fast and slow, like the colors of the rainbow, the frequencies of energy that create everything, where the circle meets and twists like a Mobius strip and gives you that infinity symbol, that is where they tell you this greater countenance lives, this being who only has two right sides to its face. That's very interesting, because the basic premise is that the supreme soul is masculine. That the left side of everything, apparently, is bad. And that's just not true. The left side of your body was inherited from your mother, and the right side of your body was inherited from your father. And if you doubt that, look at them. Look at your face, look at your parents' faces. Look at your right eye and look at your father's right eye, and you will see very likely the same eye. In my case, my mother is much taller than my father, so my left ear is higher off the ground, and my glasses sit on my face crooked, because the left side of my body is bigger. The goddess is every bit as good as God, and you can ask any Taoist or Confucianist, and they will tell you that yin and yang are equal, but they both devolve from something that is infinitely superior. And that thing that is infinitely superior, the oneness, that's the source of all giving and the source of endless love from which all things are created. And that's the number one, complete and total acceptance, the leadership that comes from being first, not pushing other people out of the way or crushing and destroying things, but simply being the first thing. So everything is about the same competition, the same physics problem. We're looking at opposing forces and how do those forces interact. If you consider all the legends and mythology and the stories told by every religion, they all have common themes. Like, for example, in every culture around the world, there's a myth of surviving a flood. The Chinese have a savior, a Jesus type, a Messiah type, whose name, Nu-Wa, is almost identical to the name of Noah, and the pictogram actually looks like a boat, a really dorky, like super deep arc-like boat. Now, does that say that the Ten Commandments were stolen from the law code of Hammurabi, like any anti-Semitic so-called scholar will tell you? No, it doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that all of these stories have been passed down through oral tradition and, as Noah pointed out, eventually, just recently, written down. All of those stories came from the same place. And whether or not there was some great, tremendous physical flood on this planet really has nothing to do with with the extremely remote concept that they're trying to get across to you, which is the idea of the universe of water, the form of the symmetrical tree, which, if you want to go and compare the measurements of that tree, you'll find the correct proportions of a pyramid in there, and you'll also find the exact shape of the arc, so many cubits high and so many cubits wide. And there's a reason for that, because that story came from this symbol and the knowledge attached to this symbol. The sequence of numbers, what we call numbers, these giant, vast, unimaginable concepts which were created by God the Father, that's why they come from the red universe, these numbers are the mechanism by which everything is built. So maybe the third thing that anyone should ever understand is what the numbers are and how they work. 1 through 9, it's a process of manifesting things, building things, creating things. It's a process that works from the top down, with the number 1 being first. And you can see that in a straight line, like the chakras in your body, or the picture of the 9 worlds from Viking mythology that's up on my page. Or you can see that in the 3-dimensional version, which is what the Tree of Life is trying to show you. The 10 Sephira, and there are 2 hidden Sephira.
Sorry, can you explain what Sephira are? I know some people...
Sure.
Yeah.
Sephira is the word that means emanation. At least that's what I was told. I'm not a native speaker of Ivrit, so I can't say, but everyone seems to agree that the word Sephira or Sephiroth means an emanation, which is the same thing as chakra means a flower of light, and core lung means a wheel of fire or a spinning nexus. They're trying to describe a point of energy from which a specific frequency is radiating out. The sun has a center, and it burns. It radiates energy to its own limit of symmetry, to the point where gravity and electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, balance out, and that's as big as the sun can be. It's based on how much fuel it has and how old it is and blah, blah, blah. But it has a center. It radiates out to a perimeter, and then that energy falls back into the center. This is how everything works. This is how people work. And this is why it is so incredibly difficult to just magically heal yourself of something or just magically create a new circumstance in your life. Because the energy that has flowed out of your center is coming from the fire. It is the energy of want and desire, and it flows up into the earth. That's your body. And you're, just as the planet Earth contains the fire within it, your body contains the fire within it. Mm-hmm. Your physical body says, I have this, I have that. It's all about things. How does it feel? The motivating fire inside of you says, I want this, I need that. It's infinitely hungry, it's ravenous, it's destructive, it seeks to assert itself and have power over others. That's what we call the devil. It's a bad thing. And that's also known as subbase, which is the only region of quantum reality that the physicists of today are really capable of studying, because you can only build a machine that looks below itself. Mm-hmm. In other words, the rules by which a calculator is created prohibit the calculator from discovering the rules by which it is created. It just can't. It can't figure it out. If you have a college professor and a kindergarten teacher in the same room, the college professor's knowledge contains all the knowledge of the kindergarten teacher, but the kindergarten teacher only has one book out of the set of 24 that the college professor has. Mm-hmm. So this struggle between what the physicists of today have decided they're going to discover and invent a new name for, the weak nuclear force, what wizards and mystics and marginalized people have always called the fire, that's the same thing. The weak nuclear force destroys atoms. It's what fission power is based on. And that is literally the fire at the heart of the sun, and the fire that makes you want things. It makes you hungry. It makes you want the car. It makes you desirous of breeding. It incites you to go and do drugs. And it is the root of all anger, because all anger comes from unfulfilled desires. And that's what hell is. And this whole Christianized, maybe or maybe not, they stole it from Zoroastrianism, idea of when you die, if you're a bad person, you go to hell. On the one hand, that's a really sick and evil brainwashing technique. But on the other hand, there actually is a little kernel of truth to it. We come here to this world from another. Yeah. There's no such thing as I'm born and I'm a little monkey and all I know is based on what's been done to me in my life, and when I die, I just rot. That's just ridiculous and silly, and a big, ugly lie that was told to all of us on purpose by people that are desperately afraid of being punished, which is another way of saying they're desperately afraid of being responsible for what they've done. If they could understand that those things had to be done in order for all of existence to eventually reach a state of equilibrium, which is the point, that those things are part of the unity, that you're hurting a person in this life because that person hurt you in the past life because you hurt them in the life before that, and it goes on and on and on, and it's all completely pointless. And it's based on the big problem that we have, which is that the fire rules. It rules everything. It rules human behavior. It rules our social interaction. It rules the way we think. It completely dominates everyone. And I have a real big bone to pick with these so-called teachers who are spreading the puzzle tree around the world and telling you this is the answer to your questions. It's not the answer. It's a trap. It's a trap that was designed to attach you to the lowest frequency of energy. The reason there's a big hole at the top of the tree and a pendulum hanging from the bottom is because the water is at the top. The highest frequency of purity and goodness, aka the strong nuclear force that binds atoms together, otherwise known as the beliefs and ideologies that bind cultures together, and the highest ideals that you have for yourself. That force is virtually missing. It's not even present in the world today. 1% of the people have ever felt that in the smallest little amount during their most enlivening moment of spiritual openness. Maybe they felt the water just a little bit. But the earth is ruled by the fire, and we're all made of earth, the element of earth, otherwise known as the quantum force of gravity, which is really kind of silly because that doesn't really exist. But what does exist is inertia. And inertia is your expired beliefs in forming, and I mean exactly that, forming inwards. Your expired beliefs falling back into your center. And as the new energy of your incarnation is being radiated out from the center, those old beliefs infect it. And you tell yourself, I am this set of limitations. I am this bunch of fears. I am blah, blah, whatever. I'm nervous. I'm short. I'm weak. I'm ugly. I'm afraid. Whatever it is. You're not even consciously aware of it, but it's there. The earth is forming the fire of everything you imagine to be wrong with you. So if you're here in the earth plane, regardless of what universe or world you've come from, and we all come from somewhere else, you come here to the earth plane and you get sucked into the trap of being a bad guy, of being selfish, of being angry, of being bitter, of cheating people, of simply spending all your time thinking, obsessing, feeling about what it is you want so much. If you smoke your cigarettes, which, by the way, cuts you off from the water, and you drink your alcohol, which incites the fire, and you watch your television, which shows you all those things that you really should have, because that's what it's all about, all the things that you really should have in order to be special, then what happens is your portion of the unity, the energy that is being invested by all the multiverse, every moment, all those angels working so hard, the stars and planets maintaining things, all your ancestors that have died before you so that you could have the chance to be here alive right now and make a choice for yourself. Where am I going to put my portion of this continuous flow of energy? If you come down here and you get sucked into the trap of being a selfish jerk, and you spend your energy the wrong way, then when this vehicle dies, you're going down. Just like that game we played when we were kids, Chutes and Ladders. You have to climb up the ladder to a better world, to a better attitude, to be a better person, and that takes massive effort and constant diligence on your part.
And willpower.
Yes, but it's so easy to misstep and take that hit or whatever your thing is. It's easy to just turn away from everyone else and to just make that selfish choice. You know, it doesn't matter whether you are, it doesn't matter whether you are naturally prone to do these things, which we all are, or if you're under the influence of some false religion, which everyone that believes in religion is, in my personal opinion, because every religion is less than completely true, without arguing about which is more or less. It doesn't matter. I may be against religion, but I would certainly never presume to try and take away someone else's means of finding a better way to live. Not only is it presumptuous and insane, it's cruel and evil, because you're depriving someone else of their right to be wrong. And guess what? Everybody's wrong about pretty much everything all the time. So there's no point worrying about anyone else. What you got to worry about is, why am I doing what am I doing? What's the reason that I have this tendency? Why is it that my pattern, my spirit, which comes into this vehicle, has a tendency to suffer these lapses of judgment, has a tendency to gravitate towards certain less than wholesome activities? You figure out, why am I going this way? And that will show you where your vulnerability lies. Mm-hmm. Now, if you just go along with badness, and everyone can talk for hours and hours about philosophical blah freaking blah that means nothing. The truth of it is, good helps people and makes things better. Bad hurts people and makes things worse. And there are certain things that pretty much everybody, except complete crazed savages, can agree is bad. And there are certain things that pretty much everyone believes is good. And I like to describe it as live or live versus evil. The words are opposite of each other. Mm-hmm. Everything that helps you live, that's good. Everything that doesn't help you live, that's evil. So you come here with what is called a tikkun or a karma or your particular weird. You come here with certain tendencies to do certain bad things, because throughout the great unfoldment of the multiverse, bad things have been allowed to happen. People went along with them because it was easy. So you come down here and you got the tendency to do certain bad things, and life is going to make it easy for you to do those things. You're going to meet people that encourage those things. Mm-hmm. If you try to not do those things, life gets harder, and random accidents happen, and people that are in positions of power take issue with you. If you try to actually do good things to help people and to set people free, and you become a little beacon of light in the soup of darkness, well, the evil is on you like flies on a turd, brother.
Agent Smith, man.
Oh, they can see it. They can see it from a billion miles away. They can see it and they can smell it, and they want to consume and destroy it because your very existence is offensive to them.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing there, and not something, I mean, I don't get, like, that doesn't stop me from doing what I need to do. The idea of the concept of what I was just referring to as the Agent Smith, because there seems to be this process of, like, as there's again, you know, it's part of the duality, but like as consciousness awakens, there's like a part of consciousness that is trying to like put dirt over top of the light and be like, no, like stop, like cover the light, like keep it there. But then like we realize that like that dirt that's being covered up on top of the light is actually just there to like actually make us stronger as we continue to grow. I mean, this world, it's a psychological and a spiritual gymnasium, and if you can see it like that, and again you see past the illusion, you see past the Maya, you realize that as Calum was saying, that we came into this world, or you know, people say we came out of this world, which is both true, but my point is that we came from somewhere else. We were somewhere else before we were here, and where we were referred to as the astral realms, if you will. Like that is a very interesting concept to take into yourself, because it really changes your relationship with the world around me. I know it has dramatically for my life, and I know it is for other people. And again, people are waking up to this idea just innately and coincidentally at the same time that the Qabalah is coming up to the surface and sort of like being put to use. Caleb, I know you got some more to say, and we still got about 20 minutes left in the show, and we're just going to bring Noah on just for a minute. He just wanted to say goodbye and just one last message I wanted to put out there, and then we'll get into more conversation. With 20 minutes left in the show, I just got to remind everyone again that if they want to get in the draw for the free shift buttons, this is something we do every week, then send a message to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio before the end of the show, and we'll do the draw at the end of the show. And again, the shift buttons, just as a little promotional thing, reminder for everyone, they are the consciousness shifting 2¼ inch buttons that have conscious evoking imagery on them, such as the Eye of Ra and the Flower of Life and the Yin Yang and the Meditating Buddha and fractals and all sorts of amazing stuff. And they have the websites for this project, for the project to give them access to the radio show, and they make for great swag that you can wear, conscious swag to help evoke conversation and to be able to use the power of imagery and symbolism to get connected with people where you are, and again, to share them as gifts and to use them as synchronicity evoking tools. And you can order them for yourself at ParadigmShiftCentral.com/buttons. And we'll get to that later on in the show. And again, just send a message, Facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio if you want to get into the draw for that, and I'll post a link in the live chat just to clarify. That said, we're gonna bring on Noah, and of course, Calum, just of course thanking you so much for being here, and again, like very very potent, very interesting reminders and things just to be able to help us. Self-reflection is a very important part of this process. And actually, I'll just sort of jump backwards a little bit, because one of our friends, Michael, he was actually asking a question. And again, if anybody has any questions, shoot them now. We'll try to get them in within this last portion of the show. But Michael wanted to ask if you had anything to share on the Qalipoth. It's like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, like Qlipoth.
Jesus.
I'm sure that's a whole thing in itself. If you want to hit upon that, we'll do that after we get back from Noah, but maybe just giving you a second to think about that. But no pressure, because I know we got some other things that we can tie in to this topic, and we'll go with it as things move along. But we'll bring on Noah first. And Noah, so just using the opportunity to just share any message, and we only got 17 minutes left in the show, so let's make the most of it. So Noah, bringing you back on. So Noah, welcome back, and go ahead. Talking Stick is back in your hands. So just a couple minutes, not to keep it short, but just keep it concise.
No, for sure. Well, I'll let him talk about the klipa. It's in Hebrew, it's just the shell, the outer shell that covers the light, essentially. But I just wanted to really say, and I think Calum was really alluding to it. And again, it takes some courage, it takes some effort, but at first, for some people, it's really going to separate them, the spiritual path, make them think or feel differently than other people. And I just really hope it doesn't happen, that people move away from the people that care about them in their life, and that they forget what spirituality really is all about. And although these deep secrets are being revealed to all of us at this time, they're being revealed from a deep place of purity and holiness, that from people that were really on such a high spiritual level of piousness and kindness and compassion and love. And I just hope that for anyone listening and for anyone who is on a spiritual path, just to remember that truly that is the essence of what we're all looking for. And for me, everything I'm studying in Cabala really gets back to the source of that, is what kind of human being am I as this being created in the image of God. That's why there's so much study about the power of, like, why shouldn't you gossip, and how that can, God forbid, completely damage a soul in the eyes of another. And just the basic elements of life, the basic conversations, the basic way we speak to our parents, that really the ordinary commandments, those are the deepest mystical secrets. That to actually live with them is the deepest, is the holiest, and is the most beautiful thing that we could possibly do. And so I hope for anybody listening, for me, myself, Calum, it was nice to meet you. All the best. I hope everyone's happy, and I hope that everyone can live and grow and not have fear that anything, God forbid, should come their way in negativity, and that we can just all collectively help each other grow. And thanks again, Skull, and keep it up, guys. I love you. Take care.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Noah.
All the best.
And before Noah leaves, just for anybody who wants to connect with Noah, you can add him on Facebook, Noah Tile. So facebook.com/Noah NOAHA Tile TILE. So the link's in the live chat, and you'll find it in the information for the YouTube of this episode. Go ahead.
NOAH.TILE, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Take care, guys.
Cool, man. Look forward to running into each other in person again. So
we'll connect soon for sure. Take care.
Sounds good, man. All right, all the best.
Bye, Calum. See you later.
Later, bro.
Awesome. All right, so with 14 minutes left in the show, one thing I was just going to hit upon because I saw it in the live chat, and somebody, when you were talking about the Sephiroth, somebody said like light bubbles was kind of like what their phrase for it, and again, like the bubbles thing came up, but you're right, like it's like the not like radiation, but like the radiating point, the center point from which the rays explode out from. In the same way, we see it in our sun, and we also see it in the sacred geometry of like our oranges and our fruits, and we see these like radiant points. I guess like those central nodes or those like portals are like the Sephiroth. At least that's as I'm interpreting it. I'm putting things together. But Calum, we'll pass it back to you. And if we want to talk about that outer shell layer, I can't pronounce it right now. The clip off.
Yeah.
Okay, clip off. If we want to get, I was just going to say we can get into that, but with 13 minutes left, keeping in mind, and then just please share whatever it is that you feel we can still cover.
Well, the short answer to that is that when every good idea was created out of the oneness, every less than good idea was simultaneously created and then sort of fell away dead. That's how the story goes. There's a lot of different interpretations of what they really mean. Are they talking about the rotational fields of the sun, the earth, and the moon, and trying to tell you that the moon is bad? Or are they talking about how some people have a colored overlay on their aura, and that color, usually it's red if you're an angry person, can infect everything that you say and do? My experience with that subject and this whole gigantic thing in general is that your energy goes where you think. And the reason that they show you bad things on TV is because they want you to think about bad things. The reason that corrupt, evil, lying, blasphemous preachers tell you sick and horrific things like every gay person is going to burn in hell forever is because they are empty shells themselves and have been ensnared by these negative ideas. And, it sucks to end on a negative note, but here's the way life really works. Everyone and everything wants to eat you. Everything in existence, the least to the greatest, it wants to eat you. It wants your energy. It wants your life force. It wants your power to choose. That is all that you are. You are not the meat that you are walking around in. You're not just the pattern of the little piece of yourself that is in this chunk of meat right now. What you are is the rare opportunity to influence the flow of energy in the universe, to make a choice for yourself, to do what you feel in your heart is the right thing to do. The television, the preachers, the government, your parents, politicians, the sports teams, the car companies, your friends, your girlfriend, virtually every person and animal and thing, institution, concept, they're all just ideas. They all want the same thing from you. They want your freedom. They want your energy because they're going to feed on it. And the ugly part, the really sad part, is that these people are the greatest victims of all. The most evil people that are the most desperate to feed off of you, to make you obey, to ensure brand loyalty, to get those customers to call back, to get you. It's just the guy that wants you to agree with what he says when you're, quote, standing around the water cooler at work. All of those people, right up to the ones with the most power and influence over society, all the whores that are rock stars and movie stars and political stars and the greedy rich people that have taken so much from everyone else, they are the lowliest, most wretched slaves of the bad ideas. And the punishment that is waiting for those people when they die is so incredibly, unimaginably bad that the worst thing you can do for them is just let them run wild. Don't be mad at them. Don't have a riot and tear down their edifices. There's no reason to shoot guns at them or even think hateful thoughts at them. Anything that you could do to, quote, get back at someone that has hurt you, all that does is give them a break 1,000 times over, because the pain you inflict on them here and now, that's so many years less that they're going to, quote, burn in hell.
Okay, that's interesting. Just some things that came to mind because you're like not wanting to end on a negative downer note or a sad note or anything. But at the same time, like when you were talking earlier about the idea that like everything wants to eat you, like the thing that I heard about that was the emphasis on like the fact that like we are the ones who have like the choices that we can make. We are the ones who have like the ability to affect the reality in amazing ways. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said like we are the chosen ones. Is this idea that to be a chosen one, it's the personal choice to take on responsibility within your life to use your choices for the greater good, for you know the betterment of the whole sort of thing. So like to say you are the chosen one, if you want to think about it that way, just shift the paradigm of that to think about how much you are using your choices, and then to continue to do that if you feel the calling, and again to continue to sort of climb up that ladder as we're talking about, and through there you sort of, as we were talking about earlier, you sort of like gain access to, I guess what you're referring to as like the water and stuff, which is sort of like a higher or a closer, you almost get like closer to like the dimensions that we're more familiar with beyond this one that we sort of came from first. But I mean, I'm just sort of talking here, I'm just babbling on. Calum, we only got just about we got about 7 minutes left in the show. I know.
So let me give you a leg up.
I was just there's something that I was actually just gonna ask, like real, just answer this in itself and then anything else. So can you explain? So what happens when we die? That was my question. That I'd be curious to hear you answer.
Sure.
Long story short, like I don't think like death is like anything to be feared. It's just like a transition process into another perception of reality, so to speak. But I'd just be curious because, like I think there is like the idea. And I was saying, or I'll let you explain it, but I have an idea, but I'll let you explain it first. Just anything to that.
Sure. Okay. If a person would like to actually see the map of everything that there is, just go look on my page. I don't know if you put it in your art gallery or not. The study guide, well, there are 3 different ones. There's the chakras, which shows all the different versions and where the numbers really come from. It's simple. There's one that explains astrology, which shows how the universes are altered by the astrological algorithm 369, which has to do with the placement of the signs when a sphere is generated by 3 perpendicular axes created by a rolling wheel. You'll figure it out if you look at the picture. Shoot, now I forgot. What did you just ask me?
Well, we were just asking what happens when we die.
Oh, when you die, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. No,
it depends on where you came from. I kind of already explained it, but it depends on where you came from.
Okay.
A lot of people, they're just from the earth. That's kind of where you start off. That's what humans are. Within the earth universe, you're made of clay, ashes to ashes, that sort of thing. Underneath or inside or below us, in a slower universe, a slower vibrational speed where time goes faster and things are smaller. In the fire universe, that's where what we would call bad things come from. And there's a lot of bad things being born in human bodies because of the current toxic wasteland that our world has become. All the good people, all the wonderful people that you love, all the creative genius artists and inventors and people like that, they came down from the universe of air. And just like the air is above the planet Earth, electromagnetism is above gravity, and the element of air is faster, meaning higher and larger than the element of Earth. So people come down here from the air and they try to show wonderful things to all the other people to help them out. If those people complete their job and do good things and help everyone out and resist the impulses to do all those bad things, then they get a promotion when they die, and their next incarnation is in a higher, faster world within the universe of the air. Some very few people may, possibly, I don't know, maybe Buddha, Jesus, I can't say for sure, may have actually come down from the water. I really doubt it because it seems to be so completely unreachable, so totally disparate from everything that is life. But you can touch it, and you can see it in the world around you in the desperate need for people and things to be believed. Your certainty is what the water feeds on. And there are angels from the water, elementals from the water. There are beings that come from that universe. And we might think of them as interdimensional travelers that come down here and portray themselves as gods and show us a better way to live. And you better believe or they're going to step on you, because they need you to believe, because that's what feeds them too. So there's the angels of the air and the gods of the water and the fairies of the earth and the demons of the fire, the devils that live in hell. And if those bad things, they want desperately to get up here, because this is heaven compared to where they came from. The creatures of the earth, the fairy elemental type of creatures, they live right next to us, literally shoulder to shoulder with you, but their vibrational speed is just a little out of phase with ours, so we can't see them. Mm-hmm. Just like the alternate reality duplicates of you yourself. If you think of this universe as an orange with 25 segments, and there are 100 up and down phases or steps available to you. The equator would be at level 50 in the middle. The top polarity of this orange, which is also a magnet, that top magnetic pole, well, that's number 1 of the water, the highest potential. And then the bottom of the orange, the lowest potential from our point of view, which would also be the highest potential of the fire, because the fire is backwards, well, that's the negative pole of the magnet. And then running around the equator of the orange, that's the spinning electromagnetic field, like the solar ecliptic plane or the galactic ecliptic plane, which all the stars and galaxies, well, in the case of the galactic ecliptic plane, all the different solar systems are on this flat disk, rotating like the water spun from a tire. Just as when you look at our solar system, all the planets are rolling around this disk. Yeah. But all the different segments of the orange going sideways to the left and sideways to the right, that's what we call sine, cosine phasing. And those other versions of you share your life, your body, your energy, your reality. They are you. They live on Earth, almost identical to our Earth, and you can touch them. You can see them, you can call them to you in times of trouble, and you can be called to them in their times of desperate need. And yes, when you
we're gonna have to, Calum, I'm gonna say I'm gonna cut you off here, but with the idea, this is not something we would normally do on Paradigm Shift Radio. We're actually going to continue this recording off air. The show is going off the air in about 30 seconds, but we're going to let Calum sort of talk for a few more minutes, and you'll be able to find that recording in this show after we do it. But in the meantime, I just want to thank everyone again so much for tuning into this show. Please, if you like this show, if you want to support the future creation of it, if you want to support the energy that goes into making it every week, you can do a donation at ParadigmShiftCentral.com/donate. This week's winner for the shift buttons are Tony Morris, and a huge shout out to him. He's been involved with the Paradigm Shift community for a long while. So again, you can find the after party hangout. We're still going to do that. That's a Google Hangout. Go to Facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio, and you'll find more information post this recording. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll pass it back to Calum, and literally just maybe we'll talk, let's just say like 10 minutes more, if that, if you just feel that there's still some things that you want to hit upon that we just sort of we just sort of ran out a little bit of time, but we're making more time. But Calum, yeah, please just continue along as we just sort of use this as an opportunity to get this information out there that ultimately is helping people expand their perception and understand and remember a little bit more about their place within this reality. So I'll pass it back to you.
Okay. Let's see. I never listen to myself when I talk, so I have no idea what I was saying. Right, parallel realities. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, there's basically, you can look at this really simple. As you and I were talking earlier, math is super simple. Everything having to do with nth dimensional physics deals with whole numbers. You don't need fractions. None of this algebraic calculus blah de blah is necessary whatsoever. It's only, that's people trying to divide into pieces what is in front of them because that gives them the illusion of control. And it's completely false and it's not necessary. All that you have to do at this point now is go to my library of images, and I suppose I'll set up a real website, here in a minute, have my roommate do it, whatever, and put on all the wordy explanations of everything, which normally I just am bored with it, really. The concepts are so great and awesome that when you understand the fundamental concepts that underlies everything, the water, basically, when you get these fundamental rules, then all the blah, blah, blah of every single specific thing, it just doesn't matter. It becomes pointless. It's irrelevant because you have gotten above this picture. A couple things that are worth mentioning. A lot of people that ironically are from these monotheistic type religions make a big issue about this and that symbol is evil and these people are bad, and we all know about the hideous torture of tens of thousands of people during the righteous Inquisition of the Catholic Church, and what a great job they did destroying science for about 800 years. Those people, you go to any church today and they still say crazy things like burn the witches. Well, I happen to be friends with a bunch of witches and they're real good people. And pagans, as a rule, are some of the least harmful people that you will ever meet. And their favorite symbol, the pentagram, comes directly from the Tree of Life. And the pentagram is what contained the secret, or the explanation of the secret that the rabbis wouldn't give me. They would say, there's a great mystery. The connection between the number 2 and the number 4, which share the same initial in the Ivrit language, is this deep and mystical thing that no one is worthy to know of. And it was the pentagram, the favorite symbol of pagans, that showed me what that correspondence was. That's how I was able to lift myself out of the fire-based need to have and want and do and say and be the boss and blah, blah, blah that everyone else is so afflicted with. That's how I pulled that pendulum up out of the fire and freed myself from all the pain and suffering of being a slave of the earth, because the pentagram is all about pulling down the energy of the oneness into the world in a usable, viable form. And I developed a meditation to do just that, and I've taught it to hundreds of people, and pretty much everyone has the same experience, which is that their superior heart chakra, the light, the sort of pinkish, purpley, the kind of lavender pink light of true love and acceptance that radiates from the chest of a person that is enlightened, the whole Jesus thing, and that's also why Superman wears his symbol on the chest. Mm-hmm. That's why the space aliens that made us out of goo all wear these white tunics with one symbol inscribed on their chest, because they know that is the center of your being. That's the center of your existence. Your heart is something like 10,000 times more electrically powerful than your head. You might as well just think of your head as nothing more than a very small, low-powered computer that runs your car for you, because that's all your body is. It's just your car.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. And there's lots of people like me that got someone else's body, and there's lots of bad things that stole someone's body, usually because the dad was infected with some sort of chemical. Did you know that a woman's eggs are produced while she is gestating in her mother's womb?
I did not know that, no.
And a man's sperm is created 2 or 3 days prior to ejaculation. So if your mother was safe and healthy and well taken care of, you will have good eggs. If well, actually that's kind of a miscued. If your grandma was healthy and cared for, your mom had good eggs, and that portion of your DNA is safe from all this modern chemical contamination. But if your dad was a drug addict, if he worked in a chemical plant, maybe he was in the army and they gave him methadone to stay awake, maybe he was a gangster and he sold a bunch of cocaine and was on that stuff all the time, it changes the DNA of the sperm. And when the egg is fertilized, a body is created which can be inhabited by a spirit from the fire. A demon alive in a human body that it owns, that it didn't even have to steal, born in this world. There's a lot of those things alive, and they are wreaking absolute havoc with our industry, our science, our culture. They've destroyed our money. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And those people are hunting the people who have come down here from the air to try and make it better for everyone else. Now, the coolest thing, which I've had many visions. I've been visited by ascended masters and saviors and gods and had them appear in the world in front of me, had them tear open this universe and show me another universe, had the offer of seduction from the most evil thing that exists and the offer of false salvation from the most clever and wicked thing exists that so many people worship willingly. And I traveled through all these different realms. I've remembered many, many lives that I've had, been out of my body more times than I can count, came up with some special techniques for that. But still, all the things that I saw and everything that happened to me, I still was not totally convinced until I straight got killed. Year and a half ago, motorcycle accident, 7 minutes on the road, a piece of meat. At least that's what they told me afterwards. From my perspective, I went to a place, I went to the very top of the ladder, that place where it twists in the back, and I was interviewed by this group of 12 deities who appear in the shape of gigantic, glowing, jiggity-jaggedy, geometric-looking letters, otherwise known as the rune language. And they could just turn into people right in front of me by just kind of spinning around. And they took me on this crazy tour of all these different lifetimes that I've lived. And they showed me, look, you keep doing this. You're getting better at this, but you keep doing this. And that's not your responsibility. This is you. You have this job. Don't worry about everyone else. Your job is to just hand everyone else a book and let them do their thing themselves. Stop trying to save everyone else. Who do you think you are? And then they threw me straight out of heaven, and like a lightning bolt, I came back to earth and woke up in my broke-ass body. And at that point, I was convinced.
Convinced of?
Convinced of everything.
Just realms and experience.
Convinced that all the work that I had done and the crazy pictures I had drawn and the things I had heard in my head and all this great, gigantic complex of information is actually 100% correct. And that's the only reason that I'm actually out telling people. I started on this 12 years ago, and 6 years ago I had angels talking to me. And right before the so-called Mayan apocalypse, I was visited by big phony Jesus and then by real Jesus, which is very, very interesting because big phony Jesus gives you this sort of mass intimidation. He shows you a vision of the world being crumbled to dust behind you, and then behind him there's sort of like this heavenly park in the sky. But he doesn't talk, and that's how you know he's not real. He's a created entity. So many people believing in this lie, it's become real. There was a real person named Jesus, and he came and visited me too. And the really cool part was that real Jesus looks exactly like you. He looks like the perfect version of you. If you never had anything wrong with you, if you were an angel, that's what real Jesus looks like. And he pointed out that I'm a little bit of a masochist, and it's not my job to help everybody else. And he told me some other things, gave me a timeline of what would happen in the future, and so far things are happening according to that timeline. Just as much as I don't really approve of Christianity as a religion, I have to admit, I did study for years, and I learned the book real well, and the first 5 books of the Christian Bible, otherwise known as the Torah, which is the core of the wisdom of the Jewish religion, that actually teaches you physics and astrology. That whole first book, which we call Genesis, but they call In the Beginning, that's teaching you physics and astrology. It's just that we don't understand the words that are being used in the same way that the authors understood those words. What else is interesting?
Yeah, like honestly, we got people. I'm multitasking as it is right now, and the hangout is happening, but I'm not engaged with it because like this is fine with me. Like this is a good chance to just continue to record. I'm not exactly sure how long. I think we could probably record almost like for like another hour. Not saying that we need to, but just saying that we got a little bit more time if there's more stuff that we want to hit upon. And I'm fascinated with your near-death experience, or literally your death experience, and being on the other side. And again, the story of like having like a council come and talk to you, a council of light. I've heard that in numerous cases, and to me it does make sense. Just that's how things go, and then you sort of get like this non-linear perspective of all things outside of time. I would love to hear if there's anything more on that. But yeah.
Oh, that was hilarious. that was funny. When I woke up in the hospital, I was enraged. I was just so pissed because it was so awesome. As soon as I got out of my body, you don't weigh anything. You don't feel anything. There's no hot or cold. You don't have any needs. You don't have any extraneous thoughts. You're just this point of awareness. So when the bike hit the car, I just, like a bird taking off, I just flew up and out. And I went spiraling up the same ladder that I've drawn. I just flew up it through. I could see just entire universes peeling off underneath me as I went up. And when I got to the top, I was inside this, the pearl of wisdom. It's a spherical construct of indeterminate dimension, and I'm kind of floating there. And in front of me, in the apparent center, is the rune angel Death, R-A-D, otherwise known as the Futhark rune, Viking language, the letter R, drawn in a jiggity geometric fashion. If you imagine 2 letter R's and then you kind of bump them together so the spine becomes one. Okay, now take 6 letter R's that are gigantically tall and made of this incredibly burn your eyes out shining blue-white light. And they all share a common spine. And they occupy 80% of this infinite space, and it is just slowly rotating in front of you. And you feel that indescribable color, that infinite frequency of purity, I guess, just burn away whatever was left of whoever you used to be. And I'm floating there in front of it, and then it's sort of like it's spinning, and then all of a sudden it sort of spins faster, and yet at the same time I can tell that it somehow is actually going slower, and it like sort of smears away, and now it's gone and has been replaced by a carousel, like with the horses, the kids ride on. And the carousel, I'm standing in the center, and they're not all horses though. Some are horses, one's a camel, there's a motorcycle. These different vehicles are going around me in a circle, and behind each vehicle there's a segment of a mirror. And when I look past the horse, let's say, into the mirror, I become that version of me, a previous version of myself in another very similar parallel reality to this, in a previous epoch of time. And just as I have joined with my alternate reality duplicates and gained power and knowledge, I was able to join with these key, I guess, because I did not choose them, previous lifetimes to become one with that person. And in that 5 seconds of apparent reality of joining with that person, I download their entire life and everything they know and what they love and hate. But it's not in a memory form. It's in the form of a bundle of energy which contains little packages of different frequencies. And those packages of frequencies join with this me and erase problems that I have and share other problems that I didn't have. And I go through the whole dozen or so of them. I can't remember as however many there was, or how if I went into every single one. I guess I went through as much as I could take and absorbed as much as I could take and gave up as much as I could give up. And then the carousel kind of spins away, and there's the big blue R again, and I tried to ask it a question, but I couldn't make a sound. It couldn't make a sound. I realized there was no sound. There was no transference of vibration, really. It was just such a pure, not even light like we think of it as light, just some kind of energy that it seems to be utterly and completely impartial, like static almost.
Yeah.
So then I can't ask.
Is this still during your death experience? I was
Yeah.
So
yeah, 7 minutes on the ground is like 7 hours up there.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's fascinating. And like these, what you're recalling right now, like these are like very vivid memories to you. Like you remember the present moment of that experience quite well, eh? Like
it's more real than this is.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like you've had that experience and no one can tell you that it's not real. Like, yeah.
Yes, that's correct. That is, and that's the truth of all magic and metaphysics and spirituality. You can talk and think, and people that never had anything happen to them can endlessly deny because they're caught in the thinky world of today. But once something actually happens, and you have a wide awake, fully conscious spiritual experience where you know you're you, and you know it's happening, you are changed forever.
Mm-hmm.
None of this crap is all that important anymore. In my case, none of this has any importance whatsoever other than the specific mission that I volunteered to take when I first incarnated in this body when it was 8 years old, and basically was reassigned when I died when this body was 48 years old. The Pearl of Wisdom thing, when the carousel went away, there was a dozen of these different runes, these letters, and they appeared as letters for a minute, and then the whole thing spun, and they all spun, and they turned into people. And they all looked like me, but different versions, like way different versions of me. Like there's one that's obviously a warrior, and there's one that's obviously a healer, and then there's one that's obviously like a monastic religious ascetic, and there's one that looks like he's like the super happy craftsman. And this table, it was so bizarre. This perfectly round table made of stone appears, and the 12 of them sit down at the table in these big stone thrones, and each throne is a different color. And they corresponded perfectly to the particular crystals in the stones of the breastplate of the high priest, which is what allowed him to approach the ark in the holiest of holies within the tabernacle way back in the story in the book they call In the Desert. Well, we call it Exodus. Same thing. So there's these 12 dudes sitting at this round table, and in the center, the table's not like, the table, it's a ring. And in the center of the ring, there's a big brazier type deal, and the sun is in the brazier. And it's obviously the sun. There's no mistake in it. It's our sun in this sort of geometric-looking metal grate in the center of this ring-like table with the thrones carved out of different stones, and a different person that looks like me is sitting in each one, and there's a 13th chair that's carved out of green jade. And now I'm a person, and I'm like, wow, this is great. I think I'm going to stay here. And they're like, oh, no, you have to go back. And I'm like, F that. That place sucks, man. I'm not going down there. My life sucks. Everything hurts. People are mean. I got nothing. Why should I go back? No. And they're like, dude, you volunteered. And they showed me just a glimpse of how I came to be here, which I knew was true because I had already seen it. And I remember the person I was before I came here, and I remember how I got here. And that's actually a big clue to machinery that humans can make that will let you travel anywhere throughout all of space and what we think is time, but that's bullshit. Time is something completely different, and if you remind me in a minute, I'll tell you what that is.
Okay.
So I'm like, no, I'm not going there. I like it here. I'm staying. I don't want to. I'd rather go back to the world I came from than go down there again. I said, I'm too old. I've failed. I failed. And they're like, no, you're doing awesome. You already earned 3 promotions. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you came from this world, and then when you did this, you earned your way to this better world, but then you do this, and you earned your way to an even better world. And then you did this other stuff that was so great, and you can go way up here. And I'm like, what's the catch? And he said, well, And it's R, the death angel, that's speaking to me. The others are just kind of like nodding sagely amongst themselves.
Sorry, R. What's R? Like you said, that was part of the runes, or?
Yes. If you look at the runic language, the fifth letter R, which is commonly pronounced Rado, or Ride, or Raid. Like Raiden from the video game, because all famous stuff is named after gods and angels. I give you a list a mile long. Even like Nabisco, named after an angel. Our common phrase, hey man, that's named after two angels.
Which one?
I shit you not, I've got it on a picture. Well, H, hey, 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 just like the chorus of the Lady Gaga song, Born This Way, which is sort of the anthem of self-respect, hey, 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 which is also what the Red Indians used to cry as their battle cry to give them courage before they went out to get massacred by the good Christian cavalry back during the founding of our country. Bitterly ironic because this angel, hey, 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 or just hey, because the letter H is also the letter E, and the letter H is spelled H-E-H, or 555. So the angel of self-respect led the Indians to sacrifice themselves so that their women and children could get away. Ironically, in the modern meaning 200 years ago, Cabala, that is the angel attributed to the founding of Christianity, which I find quite ironic. And that's also the chorus of Gaga's song, Born This Way. She sings, hey, 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 over and over again, because that is the name of the angel of self-respect. And that's one of the solar angels. If you look at the picture on my gallery, it's like a big painting with lots of little tiny Hebrew letters in a wheel. If you go over to the left-hand side and you find the one that looks like 3 horseshoes, that's hey, hey, hey. And then you go over right inside of it, there's another ring of 28 names. Those are the names of the angels of the moon, which no Kabbalah teacher will even admit exists. That's how misogynistic these people really are. They never heard of the angels of the moon because those are the girl angels. But the angel mane, as in long flowing mane of hair, M-A-N, which we pronounce as man, is on the ring inside, immediately lined up with the name Hey on the outside ring. So Tommy Chong, Weedhead, is a little bit of a prophet there because Hey Man is the union of the names of two angels. And what it's man, M-A-N, that's the angel of humanity, the angel of shared emotion and empathy. So what that phrase really means is respect and love each other as individuals. We use it as a greeting. Hippies use it as a greeting to show respect and familiarity with each other. And just to go back to the Jesus thing, real Jesus never said, I'm the Son of God. He said, I am the Son of Man. And he meant that angel.
Like that.
People, he meant that angel.
Yeah, like
he was telling you when his birthday was and what his mission is. Empathy.
Yeah, like like with the human thing, that's always been quite an obvious interpretation. Like the idea of like human equals like the hues of manna, and again, like manna is sort of referring to like the angel which we came from. Like it's like the many shades of variety of human expression that we are. One thing I'll just ask this to you just for some clarification, because I was reading it yesterday on some stuff related to my anime, Neon Genesis Evangelion, but they were talking about how like even the modern, or not the modern, but the sort of common interpretation of like Adam and Eve is quite misleading in a lot of ways. And there's also the idea that we're not literally trying to say that Adam was this person who was like on Earth, and then like out of them came more people. But like Adam represents like the single unity, and there was like the name was different. It was like Adamon or something like that. Adam Tadmon, and then like and that is like who we came from in a literal extension of like we are the fractalated versions of the Adam Tadmon or
Kadmon, Cadmon. Yeah, it means basically one light, one heart.
Yeah,
it has to do just like the Ka they talk about in Egyptian quote mythology, otherwise known as a recipe for how to navigate the afterlife. Their whole thing is that the Ka, Ka, your spiritual body, your energetic body, your divine self, can only inhabit your physical body if you're a super awesome good person. If you go around being a dick, your Ka will desert you in the blink of an eye, and then you will become a shell, an empty person with no heart.
And then there's the other part to it too, which is like the introduction of Lilith as well, and like the misinterpretation of the idea that people think it's like the Adam and Eve thing, whereas Lilith was like the first wife of Adam.
That whole thing is a giant bunch of crap. There is no such thing as one guy and his girlfriend who were idiots until some dragon came along and said, "Hey, eat the apple." No, that's just stupid. All of these people that try to tell you the book of Genesis is the literal chronicle of what these actual people did, they have no idea what they're talking about. Some liar has dragged them into a cult and told them, if you want to go to heaven, you got to condemn everyone else to hell. That's the whole basis of that cult, and it's a bunch of baloney. That book is teaching you physics of astrology, the whole thing. And you got to remember, we English speakers, and actually to get back to this ties into the numerology thing that you had mentioned earlier. English comes directly from Ivrit. They have 22 letters. Well, okay, they have one vowel, that's the letter A, represents the silence before all things. Then they have 21 letters that come in sequence that count up to 900. A is 1, B is 2, Y is 10, K is 11, R is 200, TH, Tav, which means the breasts of a woman, and also to sacrifice yourself, that's the Jesus letter, that's worth 400. Then come the capital letters. Capital K, that's the Egyptian Ka, counts 500. And then you get up to 900, which is capital TS, Sadiq, which means righteousness or perfect expression of femininity. And it's kind of funny that transsexuals identify with the transliteration of that letter. And then, of course, the great mystery is, what is the final letter? It's capital A. It counts 1,000, and that represents the silence at the end of all things. So here in English, we have 26-letter language. Well, the Hebrew or Ivrit letter H that we were talking about a few minutes ago, as I mentioned, is also the letter E. So in English, they were divided into two separate letters. The letter Vav, which comes after He, the sixth letter, Vav, is also pronounced as F. So that was divided into two different letters too. You do that a couple times, 22 letters becomes 26 letters, and we have English. So if you're going to do English numerology, you got to separate the vowels from the consonants. You add them up separately. The vowels are your inner essence, your soul, which, contrary to popular opinion, is not the part of you that lives forever. Your soul is the product of the emotional experience of being alive. And when you die, it goes into a tree or a rock or a river, or if you die unfulfilled, it becomes a hungry ghost. If you're a Chinese person, if you're a shaman, the technique I was originally trained in, Buryat shamanism, from when I was a little kid, we call them a Suld, S-U-L-D, a wandering spirit. Saint Jerome, Constantine's translator, who was actually half a Gnostic and a firm believer in reincarnation, he coined the word solus, S-O-L-U-S, in Latin to mean only. But it doesn't mean the only thing that unites man and God. That is a lie spread by Christianity. It means it only exists when you are alive. There's a conflict. Your spirit, the light above your head, and that's your higher self, and your lower self, the light below your feet. Your ninth chakra is in the earth below you, and your first chakra is in the air, like 2 feet above your head. That's in one of my study guides too. And you know it's true because if you start with 1, the light above your head, and 2, the crown chakra, then the third chakra actually is your third eye. And that's why they call it that. That's the beautiful thing about all of the stuff I've created, all the study guides and all the different pictures and the symmetrical tree. All you got to do is look at it and you know it's right. No one has ever successfully argued with me on any of this stuff because there's just nothing you can say. It's not my opinion, it's just what it is. You look at it and say, yeah, there you go. That's what it is. It's like we were talking about, I mentioned to you earlier with astrologers. Sometimes when I explain to people what astrology is, they will freak out and get angry with me because they are invested in making money off inaccurate astrology, and they can't stand to be wrong. A lot of people in the world are afraid of astrology, and the reason is not because they think it's bunk, it's because they're afraid it's right. And it's not just that they're afraid of me knowing everything about them when I give them a reading. It's because they're terrified I will tell them everything about them. And then they have to face who they really are and take responsibility for what they've actually done and be a real person instead of just flowing along with the pointlessness and futility of life in the quest to be personally happy.
Yeah, definitely. Now, like, honestly, like, are you okay to? Can we go for a little bit longer? Is that okay with you?
We can go for as long as you want. I've got hours and hours. I mean, we haven't even really scratched the surface.
I know, like, this is going to be sort of like an extra special version of the radio show, but I mean, it would just be a hassle to try and call you back again next week when we got you here already as it is, so I'm fine to continue recording. We actually got the after party hangout happening at the same time, and so this is good. There's multiple things going on, but again, like, there's only a couple people who can hear this live, but everyone's going to be able to hear this once the show processes and goes up. But I was actually going back to what I was talking about with Lilith. Can you maybe, because again, I'm just asking for my own curiosity. Can you explain a little bit about Lilith and how, like, even just like the mythology of that works into an understanding of how things relate, so to speak? And who is Lilith?
Just a little.
Yeah, not much. Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I mean, that's something that I purposely didn't spend a lot of time studying up on, for the same reason that when the big bad red man came and offered me infinite power in exchange for just corrupting other people that wanted to be corrupted anyway, man, I just turned around and ran for my life. Didn't give it a moment's thought, just said hell no and ran for it. Because if you look at bad things, you're shining your light on them. If you think about bad things, you are spending your energy to keep those things inflated, alive, active, and you're magnetizing yourself for those things to come to you. Just like the people that talk about creative visualization and positive thought reinforcement, and I use a subliminal program on my computer that lets you write your own positive text messages that fly by the screen so fast that your conscious mind can't see them and argue about it, and it just goes right into your subconscious. And if your computer, if you have this invisible writing in front of your eye that says, I'm happy, 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 pretty soon you're just going to find that you're a lot happier than you were before you started using that technology. What the wonderful thing the computer can do is there are brain entrainment videos that will conquer the evil power of the television, that will synchronize the vibrational speed of the hemispheres of your brain, that can take you into that theta state of deep healing or the delta state of deep sleep, or even speed your brain up to the gamma range where you share the sort of open acceptance of all things that only the highest Tibetan lamas can normally achieve on their own. Just tremendous things are available on the computer to help you. Now, as far as the whole Lilith deal, got to remember, the patriarchy is bordering on misogyny. They do not like a woman that has her own head. There's just nothing worse than a, quote, bitch with a big mouth. That is the thing most hated by these angry little men that seek authority over everything, is a woman that dares to question them or not do what she is told. Now, if you look at the name LLTH, the name tells you everything about it. In fact, when you're visited by an entity, ask it its name. It works with people, too. No one can lie. These beings that you may meet someone that claims to be an ascended master or some sort of guide, or you might be working with the Ouija or Tarot or something like this, and you get a communication from some spirit that claims to have valuable information, ask its name, and then do the Hebrew numerology of that name. So, the name in question, LLTH. L, that's Lamed, that's the letter that's, 12th letter, and it counts as 30. And it means a leg, like standing on a leg. But it is also the letter of Saturn, and it means the restrictive nature of physical reality. So L, that's two legs, that's double Saturn, that's a double restriction, restricting two things. And then what's the last letter? TH, which I already mentioned was the letter for breasts and for being self-sacrificing. So basically what that name says is, here's a woman that has no milk. A woman that has no mothering. A woman that would not give to her child. So I'm certainly not going to say there was a real person, and if there is some sort of demonic entity by that name, I've never met it, and I don't know that it was part of creation or if it was perhaps created by a group of men who like women to do what they're told. I do know that I've seen some footage from the Lilith Fair, the musical event, and I saw some really heinous behavior on the part of some women that were apparently complete savages. I don't really know what that's about. But it goes to show you that you can invent a bad idea and teach it to a bunch of people, and they'll go and act it out. Like Big Phony Jesus. Same thing. So yeah, I mean, it's a legend.
Yeah. It's kind of like a story and stuff. It's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, cool. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of curious. That's just like one of the things I'm fascinated with that. The idea that Lilith is Adam's first wife, and the idea that like nobody's ever really heard of her, and it's just something that makes you question the story that we're so commonly used to hearing, and definitely opens up to some other stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. What other stuff do you feel that we could hit upon if we were to just pick a couple more things, and then we'll wrap it up after that? What are some other key things? I mean, we've hit upon a little bit about astrology. That's important. I'm really fascinated with your personal experience of other states of perception within other dimensional realities, if we want to call it that. That's something I'm absolutely fascinated in. If there's anything that you want to talk about related to like the lucid dreaming experience or anything anything like that, that's always interesting. Any of just like practical tips would always be important that people could bring into their own life. Maybe pick if you have something off that, but definitely let's bring it back to the idea of any practical
Sure.
tips that you can provide to people to help them sort of climb up the ladder, so to speak.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you exactly what you got to do, but people are not going to like it because it's pretty much the opposite of fun in most cases. Your computer operating system, the wet piece of machinery we call your brain, these days almost everybody's brain is polluted by all these toxic chemicals, and what happens is bad ideas motivate people to create things that are not part of nature. These things are then poured in the water, burned into the air, put into vaccines or food or whatever. And these chemicals, these infinitely complex little things made in a laboratory, mimic the molecular structure of your brain's neurotransmitters. Everywhere in your brain, there's this infinite series of keyholes that only take a particular key. And the bad chemical comes along, gets into your brain. It's tiny. It's been made to get past your blood-brain barrier, gets inside your brain, and it plugs up that keyhole. Now the key won't fit in there ever again, and you're screwed. Forget about higher ethical concepts. You're just not capable of thinking them. That's what cigarettes are all about. They are just a horrible, horrible plague on the human race. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about the guy that wants to roll his own tobacco that's grown naturally on a farm somewhere. Then you're just being a fool and abusing a sacrament, like someone that smokes weed all the time. If you only smoke it once a month, you can have a wonderful spiritual experience. If you smoke it every day, you just get fat and lazy. You're burning up something that was supposed to be special. Mm. So all these different, that's actually another real interesting point. Every different plant, every different chemical, every color, every sound, every crystal, every drug especially, and in this case I'm really talking more of entheogenic plants, but chemical drugs count too. What they are is little tiny connections to other realities. Like, to use the cannabis as an example, the shortcut to the astral plane is to smoke. People smoke some weed, and now all of a sudden they feel the oneness of the world, and they feel the earth energy around them, and magic seems to make sense, and everything seems more vivid. And what you've done is you've expanded your perception out of your body and into the very lowest realm, the so-called astral plane. There's 50 dimensions above this one and 50 dimensions below this one. And the astral plane is only one step up from here. Mm-hmm. And it is full of what Plato called the daemons, the unhappy ghosts. That's where ghosts live. That's where curses live. That's where thought forms, which are spells created by people willingly or unwillingly, exist and float around. You can easily think of yourself as walking through, what's a good example? Almost like if you're walking through a muddy ditch in the middle of a hurricane and the rain is blowing sideways and the wind is flinging dirt and sticks and stones and crap everywhere and you can hardly see to make your way, that's the astral plane. Everything there completely imaginary, and it's usually imagined by the person that's having the so-called out-of-body experience. But that's not really what it is, and that's not really what you get from the cheat of doing different drugs either. So if you really want to expand yourself and become more than just the sack of meat, the first thing is you got to clean out the sack of meat. In order for your brain to work right, your body has to be functioning properly. And everyone in this modern era has been purposely poisoned with heavy metals, mercury in your fillings, fluoride in the water, etc., etc. Well, fluoride was first used by the Nazis in World War II to dose the Jews in the concentration camps so they would just sit there and be quiet and wait to die. And that's the same reason it's put in our water today. We know that mercury causes autism. It's a fact. And yet they still put 70,000 times the amount of mercury that you would find in a, 70,000 times the concentration of mercury in a vaccine compared to a thermometer. Like if you break a mercury thermometer, you can chase that little ball of metal around, and if you get just the teeniest little bit of it on your fingertip, they say, oh, that's poisonous, you've got to go to the emergency room. Well, every vaccination that they want you or force you to give your baby has got little tiny molecules of mercury that are free floating spread throughout it. So you might as well just like break the thermometer and feed it to your kid as give him an injection. It's not a mistake. It's not an oversight. It's not a manufacturing error. It is terrorism and oppression and genetic warfare that is being waged on the human race. And there are people that are complicit in these crimes. And those are the people that have all the money and all the power because they are the slaves of the bad ideas. And the bad ideas want us to suffer because that's their food. Our torment is their food. And the more they can get us to be bad, the lower we're going to go down the chute in our next lifetime.
Yeah, I just want to add in something there because that sort of ties in with this idea that I remember piecing together like years ago. Me and my friend were just sort of talking, and there's a term used. It was by the fellow who wrote about the out-of-body experiences, Robert Monroe, but he used the term loosh. And loosh was just sort of referring to the energy that is us and the energy that we sort of give off. But then we sort of were putting together this idea that there actually is this aspect to reality where there's like other entities on different vibrational planes that actually harvest, that actually feed off of our loosh. And just, again, loosh is just a term to sort of help us understand this process. But yeah, so like the people that are sort of like controlling and keeping people in certain situations are doing it to sort of like turn humans into this cattle where the other entities and other dimensions are actually like they're harvesting loosh in this sense. And then we got into this idea that like, you know, like how much of an agreement are there between the people who are sort of like in these circles, you know, call them the Illuminati or whatever, and like their awareness of what it is that they're doing to the people, and like as if there's some sort of communication or knowledge of these entities on the higher planes and how it's working or something. I mean, it was sort of like a conspiracy idea, but we were like, damn, like why does that sound like that may actually be something there, like the idea of loosh harvesting. So I mean, again, for me, like it sort of sounds like sort of a daunting kind of spooky sci-fi, you know, quote unquote scary idea. But if anything, it's just sort of understanding and bringing awareness back to the idea of asking ourselves, like, what loosh are we putting out into the world around us? And I think obviously if it's sort of like a fear-based loosh, that in itself is something that can be like taken. It can be like somebody can claim it as their own. They can like take it away from you. Whereas if it were like more of like the positive frequency, then that's something that's more sort of like that can't be taken away from us in the same way, or it can't be harvested. Or it is harvested, but just in a more cultivating, like positive sense. Does that sort of?
That's absolutely correct. In fact, the Institute is in spite of the fact that that's where all remote observers that work for the government are trained using Robert's techniques and the hemisync technology that he developed. In spite of that, they did a lot of really good work there and scientifically validated a lot of things that were, you know, fringy and considered nutty before that. And yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, I was getting really into that earlier as far as the way various beings feed on your power of choice. Well, the direction you choose to put your energy is what I'm really talking about. If you're going to radiate fear, then entities that feed on fear are going to find you delicious. Since entities that feed on fear are pervasive throughout this side of the galaxy, just because it is this side of the galaxy, that's a really common technique. There are people ask me sometimes, do you believe in aliens? And I say, do you believe in the sun? Do you believe in math? Not only are there uncountable billions of physical people in this universe, there are billions upon billions upon billions of physical people in all the other universes. And I've been to enough of them to know there are many schools that teach effective techniques which people can use to visit other realities. No, you're not taking your body there. That's impossible. For the same reason that time travel is impossible. Because no one really knows what it is. If people understood what time actually is, then they wouldn't even have the idea that they could travel in time. That's ridiculous. No one here can travel in time. No one here can even travel up the ladder. There's one person out of 10 million that becomes pure enough that they can call the invisible door to come, and they can actually ascend or walk out of this world into a higher one. What happens much more frequently is people fall out of this world into a lower one. But as far as the thing with time, what that really is not some invisible flow of past and future events depending on people's choices with infinite bubble universe, blah, blah, blah. That's so human, egocentric crap-a-loney. It's not even funny. Time is simply relative positions in space. The reason that January 1st is January 1st is because Earth is in the same relative position to the Sun. That's simple. Every January 1st is just like every other January 1st because the Earth is in the same position relative to the Sun. The same frequency is shining from the equator of the Sun, otherwise known as the angel whose name comes first in the list. The 72 names of God, otherwise known as the 72 angels of the Sun, are merely the 72 5-degree segments of the solar ecliptic plane. And the Sun radiates all information and knowledge. Think of the Sun as a step-down transformer. The center of our galaxy, that's like the grandfather God. And it is shining a light through all of space at our tiny, tiny little Sun. And our tiny little Sun takes all that information, the rules that say 1 is 1, 5 is 5, 1 plus 5 is 6. Blue is faster than red. Rules, physics. That information is channeled out, radiated to the planets by the Sun, and the Sun is shining a beam of light right at Earth all the time. That is stepped down again by our planet, and our planet is radiating out from its center a specific individual special ray of information that's shining right up through the ground into you at all times. And that maintains your existence, that informs you of what you have to do, of how things are. That's the world making itself and making you out of itself.
Cool. Anything more? If you just want to continue on that, by all means, or do you want me to sort of?
Okay.
I think what you're saying though, I agree that I've had that idea myself. The idea of like, what is time if not like different measurements of relative position? You're right. Like that's I've again, like these ideas that we're talking about here. It's really interesting because in a lot of cases it's fascinating. If you could do an experiment where you just had like, you know, a handful of people on different sides of the planet and then observe them all sort of like grabbing onto these similar ideas at different points without needing to communicate to each other, as like almost a proof as to like what we were talking about earlier, you know, like where are these ideas? It's not like they're actually like coming from within us as much as they're like, well, I mean, everything's inside of us, but I mean, yeah, like they're almost sort of floating around us, and we almost sort of like align our frequency with them. I mean, just to sort of try and use those words or reach out and grab it or something.
Sure. An important point to make.
Oh, actually, I will just say, I'm not entirely sure if this recording will cut us off automatically at some point. It's hard to say whether that's going to be at 3 hours or 4 hours. If it's 3 hours, it may happen soon. But if not, we'll just continue. But yeah, let's wrap up soon enough then, I guess. And yeah, we can always have you back on for another episode, because there's infinite amount of stuff to talk about. But it's really fascinating. It really is. And sure. Thanks again for being here. So
yeah, sure.
All right, so let's just go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
I was starting to veer into astrology, which is definitely needs an explanation that needs to be finished, because it's a very useful tool that people are afraid of. But as far as time, okay, Earth is going around the sun. The sun is also going infinitely slowly around the center of the galaxy, right? So 1 year ago compared to today, Earth was in the same position relative to the sun, and the moon was in the same position relative to the Earth.
So, state the obvious, the recording was automatically cut off. So as an official conclusion, thank you again to Calum for joining us in this episode. You can find the links for his Facebook profile and page with more information about what he has to share in the show notes for this episode. There's a lot more to talk about as we aim to bring more clarity to the conversation. So stay tuned for future episodes in which we will be welcoming Calum back on again. Thank you again for listening. Go continue the shifty conversation with your friends, and we'll see you in the future. One love. Thank you for listening to another episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. If you would like to connect with people where you are and continue the conversations further, then check out ParadigmShiftCentral.com/buttons to order your supply of shift buttons to share with people to help invite them to this global project, while also helping make new friends and building local community where you are. Shift buttons are tools to hack the matrix and tap into the synchronistic nature of reality to accelerate our collective awakening. Enter the promo code PSR into your order to receive additional bonus buttons to your supply. Thank you again, and one love.